Hi, beautiful people. I hope that you had an amazing Monday. Let's talk about President Trump's deal with Iran. I'm going to get right into it. Everything I share is for educational purposes. Let's go. Oh, wait. What did I do? Oh, there you go.
Praise for this agreement with Iran. Correspondent Alex Hogan has the latest tonight from Tel Aviv.
A deal moving forward and new talks ahead. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says more negotiations between Washington and Tehran will follow Friday's signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding in Switzerland. The framework will reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 500 commercial vessels remain in the Persian Gulf, according to maritime and energy intelligence firm Kepler. Iranian state media today reporting that Tehran has only agreed to 60 days of free passage for ships, and after that, they could collect transit payments. Still, Gulf leaders are welcoming the agreement. Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs calling it an important step toward consolidating sustainable peace. And key mediators in Pakistan are celebrating the diplomatic breakthrough.
After 3 months and 16 days of horrible war, with the grace of God, Iran and America have agreed and announced ceasefire, and a complete and permanent end to military operations has been declared on all fronts, including Lebanon.
The agreement came hours after Israel carried out strikes on Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon, raising concerns the deal would fall through and Iran would fire back. Vice President J.D. Vance telling Fox.
We saw a lot of evidence that the Iranians were going to launch a large number of missiles at the Israelis. With our communication with them over the course of getting to this signed peace deal, they assured us that they are not going to respond to the Israelis.
Israel today clarified it's not going to withdraw forces from land seized from its neighbor to the north.
We will remain in these security zones for as long as necessary to protect our country.
Far-right members of Netanyahu's government are calling on Israel to ignore the deal. The statements come as Hezbollah says it fired drones and rockets at Israeli forces attempting to advance in southern Lebanon tonight. Brett.
Alex Hogan live in Tel Aviv. Alex, thanks. We begin in Geneva with senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Brett. Vice President Vance is saying there will be a two-step verification process for Iran. Step one, stop pursuing nukes. Step two, get access to the global economy. It sounds pretty simple. We just don't know how any of that will work. So far, officials promoting the deal have basically been saying, just trust us.
Everything is very nice, thank you.
The primary goal of this conflict has apparently been met.
The main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers.
President Trump says this deal is better than the last one.
The Barack Hussein Obama deal,
Barack Obama himself is doubtful.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place.
Officials say the U.S. has not unfrozen any Iranian money, but Iran could soon see sanctions lifted.
It's really a behavioral thing. If they do what they're supposed to do, that starts taking effect.
The deal also lays out another way the Iranians could get paid.
The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
That's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation.
Israeli strikes this weekend against Hezbollah and Lebanon could have jeopardized these talks. That is why, according to Axios, President Trump told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu he has no effing judgment. I let him know that.
We do want to see if we can straighten out the Lebanon thing. That's a mini version of what we were doing.
Critics wonder why a deal that has already been signed by the U.S. can't be shared by the U.S.
They need to know exactly what this, quote, understanding is.
We won't until after Friday's signing ceremony.
I'll probably be gone by then. I may be involved, I may not.
Peter Doocy in Geneva. We'll head back for breaking news.
So you don't rule out that U.S. military forces might be part of ensuring this, that they may have to go in?
Well, I don't think that U.S. military forces are going to be necessary. I do think that we have some expertise on the non-military side in the destruction of nuclear material. And again, that's one of the things the president cares so much about, is ensuring they don't rebuild that enriched stockpile.
All right, well, so the U.S. military entering a new phase now as technical negotiations with Iran continue and with details still being ironed out. All eyes now turn to whether or not Iran follows through with the deal. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is live in Washington. She's got the very latest details for us. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Sandra. Well, as Peter mentioned, we really don't know what is in this memorandum of understanding. President Trump said the text of the MOU would be released after a signing ceremony in Geneva on Friday that he does not plan to attend. That's a long time in the Middle East. For the time being, the U.S. military posture won't change, according to Pentagon officials. The U.S. has 50,000 troops in the Middle East and 24 warships in the region, including 2 aircraft carrier strike groups. Pakistan's prime minister, who helped mediate the deal, however, said military operations will be permanently terminated once the deal goes into effect. But as we know, it's one thing to sign, another to implement a deal. The deal envisions that negotiations about Iran's nuclear program will begin soon and last for 60 days after the deal is signed. Secretary Hegseth said the U.S. military will remain in place to enforce the deal and demine the Strait of Hormuz, but some leaked details suggest the U.S. might pull its forces out of the Middle East after the nuclear issue is dealt with. The unknown factor is Lebanon. An Israeli airstrike on the southern suburbs of Lebanon's capital, Beirut, has put further pressure on attempts for a U.S.-Iran deal to end the war. President Trump had some choice words for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a phone call with our own Trey Yingst this weekend, indicating that such strikes could blow up the deal. The attack on Dahiya in Lebanon, in Beirut, where the Iran-backed armed group Hezbollah is based, came after the U.S. said a deal with Iran had been agreed to on Sunday. Israel said the attack was in response to Hezbollah firing a drone towards northern Israel. Meantime, a U.S. Navy search and rescue helicopter assisted in the rescue of 14 Indian mariners in the northern Arabian Sea Sunday. A Navy P-8 Poseidon was the first on the scene, and an MH-60 Seahawk rescued 3 additional mariners. Sandra.
All right, Jen Griffin with the latest details for us. Thank you, John.
The devil's in the details, and this tape, the devil could be deadly for the state of Israel. Let's remember what the goals of the war were, as stated by both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump at its outset. It was not just to eliminate Iran's nuclear program, to remove that stockpile of highly enriched uranium, but also to eliminate Iran's ballistic missile system that was pummeling all of Iran's neighbors, not just Israel, to stop Iran's support for terror. And that was all crucial goals for Israel's national security. Right now, none of those goals have been achieved. And so there's a somber move in Israel tonight. We're not participating in the celebrations just yet. I'm sure it'd be very interesting to see what is actually in this agreement and not just what's being reported by various media outlets around the region and around the world. But there's great concern here that Iran, at the end of the day, will remain in control of the Strait of Hormuz, if not accepting tolls, will receive frozen assets from the United States, maybe sanctions relief that will enable Iran to rebuild its military and strategic capabilities, continue supporting terror, continuing building ballistic missiles, and still the question of what's the future of the nuclear program and the nuclear stockpile will remain unanswered. That's a lot to say right there, Sandra, but that is...
President Trump at the G7 summit in France, rubbing elbows with world leaders as the U.S. and Iran inked a memorandum of understanding, setting the stage to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and end the American naval blockade.
Guys, please double tap the screen and like my video. Thank you.
DJT is boiling the entire deal down to one thing.
The main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, which is what it was all about, because they probably would have used it if they had it. So we had 2 big moments when they terminated the JCPOA, that was the Obama deal, the Barack Hussein Obama deal. And when I terminated that, it was very important because it was a road to a nuclear weapon.
Speaking of Barack Hussein Obama, the former president says he's doubtful that Trump's Iran deal is better than his deal.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place.
And with the signing ceremony just days away in Switzerland, the left's already yodeling failure.
This reckless and costly war of choice has been a disaster as it relates to strengthening the national security of the American people. Things aren't better for us, they're worse. In fact, Iran is stronger right now.
It is identical, as in plagiarized, as in lifted straight off of Obama's deal.
This war was just a colossal mistake. No, we are not any better off. Sort of back where we were when we started. No clear nuclear deal.
All right, Dana, they're trying to say this isn't a significant difference from this agreement. Well, there are some significant differences. Most of their leaders are dead. Their military infrastructure has been demolished. They can't concentrate on exporting terror because they have to they're barely keeping themselves together. So there is a difference here. The deal may sound similar, but you're dealing with an entirely different atmosphere.
It's well, I could make their arguments better for them because there are things that you could say that you would be able to think, okay, so you killed all of those 40 leaders, but now the IRGC is in charge. Okay, so that's who we're dealing with, and that's who we're supposed to stand next to on Friday and sign an agreement that nobody's seen or read, except for this is the most transparent administration history, but we can't read it. Like I could make all of those points.
You have to stop doing that, Dana.
I
think she sounds
They don't
great.
call me. But the thing, like we said at the very beginning, the victories are usually visible, clear, understandable, and it's just premature to say. We haven't even read the information. I would, if I were the Democrats, I would be saying, you telegraph everything else. Why won't you just let us read the thing? And I think there's maybe two reasons for that. One, things are still being worked out behind the scenes, which would be, I guess, understandable. It's like they jumped the gun perhaps and saying, there's a deal, it's great, everything's moving, but and then an hour later, no, it's not, but maybe it is. And I try to keep up with it all day long. I think the best thing we could tell our viewers right now is to say, we got to wait and see. It looks like there could be progress here, at least in getting this to end and the possibility of oil to start moving. Maybe that can then translate into some lower prices here at home. But in the meantime, you do have to look at the fact that they're going even back. Soleimani was killed. The Operation Midnight Hammer that put the uranium underground in the first place, the fact that they were able to blow up all of the leadership, and including, I would go back even to what the Israelis did with the pagers, and having all of that intel in there, like all of that is different and better and puts us in a better position than we were 10 years ago.
Right.
Or even more than that, like when the JCPOA written by Obama was there. The interesting thing is that from a communication standpoint is that you have President Trump over in Europe talking to the Europeans about a variety of different things, but this is the headline. You have Vice President Vance, who you're going to see tonight. You're going to see him a lot over the next week, not only because he's now the face of dealing with this agreement, but he also has his book coming out, and it's a significant one about his own personal religious journey. And then at the same time, you have President Obama's library being open, so he's going to be out doing all of these interviews. So I have a feeling we're going to be talking a lot about Iran, but yet nobody's read the document, so it's unclear what you can really say about it.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the other person talking about the
Yes,
other person
exactly.
talking about it, because that's what we do on cable news. Emily, do you feel like this announcement is more concrete than the previous announcements, given that, Dana says maybe we jumped the gun, but we were always jumping the gun because we had pressure from the media to say something?
It feels different. It feels very different. And the opposite of prematurely spiking the football, which is what we are hearing from, for example, Chris Murphy out of Connecticut, that says this has humiliated America. We actually, other than the major points, we don't know the specifics of this huge MOU because the text hasn't been released yet. So how is it that the prior president says it's doubtful it's anything new? I mean, I keep picturing the different yellow Nuprin commercials. Remember those? Of course it's different. And part of it that I've seen, in part because time has passed and because now they have agreed to no longer fund terror proxies, which to me was the greatest thing that the abomination of that prior deal fomented. We were paying for the deaths of Americans and our allies this entire time. And it reminded me of on Wednesday night when the Knicks were behind by 29 points and I went to bed because I didn't want to see the loss. And then I woke up in the morning and everything was awesome. All of this is because people don't want to root for America. They don't want to root for a win just because Donald Trump is the one at the helm. So we will learn a lot more, obviously, and especially when the internet gets turned back on in that country. Because right now, who we haven't heard from is all of those Iranian people that are likely, I would think, pretty excited about what the future has to hold. And to get there, there had to be a little bit of a give and take and a little bit of back and forth. So my faith is in our president and the negotiators of this deal. And I'm also a little bit more patient than people like Obama and Chris Murphy and Hakeem Jeffries, who seem to just want to spike the football the wrong direction immediately.
Yeah, Jesse, who let Hakeem say Iran is strong as ever?
I was listening to Jessica. Sorry, Jessica. I've been briefed on the deal, and it's pretty simple. You immediately upon signing, the Strait opens up, and there's no tolling, and there's no money exchanged. And you're going to get traffic probably restored within the next 2 to 3 weeks. What really made a difference were the airstrikes Monday and Tuesday, and Operation Freedom was covertly bringing oil out. So the Iranians lost all their leverage over the Strait. But the most significant part of the deal is that the Iranians have signed in principle to agree for the complete destruction and removal of the uranium. Right now, they can't get it. They have no access to it. It's buried a skyscraper's length deep underground. All 3 sites are inaccessible. And the United States is the only country with the technical expertise to be able to remove it. So we're going to remove it along with the IAEA, and we're going to destroy it, and we're going to bring it out of the country. And then and only then will there be sanctions relief. Also, they're not going to get any sanctions relief if they continue to fund terrorism. If Hezbollah attacks the Jews have a right to defend themselves, but they will not be getting any sanctions relief. So they have to keep Hezbollah on a leash. And we will maintain our military posture until they give up the dust. That is the deal. And all the details to the MOU are going to be released on Friday after the signing. And the bigger thing in terms of like a regional peace deal, all of these Gulf nations have agreed to invest $300 billion to rebuild the energy infrastructure of Iran because they've lost $1 trillion through the bombing and the blockade. And that's big because you're going to economically integrate the region. And when you have investments and Iran is investable, you're not going to bomb each other. And it's a lot different already, as you said, from the Iran deal. We have Gulf allies invested. We have no sunset clause. We have the complete elimination of the uranium, so there is no enrichment. All of their leaders have been killed. 80% of the military has been decimated. And you're not going to have bribes. You're going to have them perform, and then they can get paid. And if this is done, which is going to be negotiated up front within the first 30 days after the signing Friday, this could be the crowning achievement of the Trump administration. This has been the thorniest foreign policy problem of the last 50 years? And this is a 47-year war. And if he ends it, that is huge. And it shows that you can win wars through air and naval blockades. And that's a big threat to the Chinese.
You know, it's a good point that you mentioned that it's been going on for 47 years, Jessica, because I think that's how you almost have to read Trump in a lot of these things, which is that he's a context president. Shows up, he looks around, he goes, that reflection pool is disgusting. It's been disgusting forever. I want to fix it. The border is hell. I want to fix it. Iran, and he, by the way, he has been talking about Iran for how many decades now? So it only seemed natural that he would do it his way in a different way and see what works. Is there anything that Jesse said that you would disagree with?
Listen, if what Jesse said is about to happen, praise be, right? That sounds absolutely fantastic. But Jesse has clearly been briefed more than like Lindsey Graham, for instance, who's pretty close to the president.
He's been debriefed.
Funny. You know, Lindsey Graham coming out yesterday and posting that he's concerned about the difference in opinion between what we say is in the deal and what the Iranians are saying, and then shifting the blame onto J.D. Vance, which is quite strategic, where he said, you know, this will be a huge feather in J.D. Vance's cap. If it's him, means I want to give Donald Trump a break if this is bad, right? If this is worse than the JCPOA, I can't go after dear leader about this. So I'm going to put it on JD Vance. Not releasing any of the text is a choice since they have digitally signed it. So not quite an auto pen, but the thing is done. So you should have put it out there for people, especially for your supporters, because he has had a lot of people on his side who are saying this had to happen for 47 years. They've been a huge threat. And I think that it is also meaningful that just a couple of hours ago, Netanyahu was giving a press conference where he said, I haven't been able to see it. So the country that we went into the war with hasn't seen it, but they've allowed the Iranians to sign onto it. And he said that we're not complying. We're going to do what we need to do, which means that they could blow up the deal because from our perspective and the Iranian perspective, they want Israel to stop hitting Lebanon. Again, if what Jesse says is going to happen, happens, fantastic news. But from what it looks like, that this is just an MOU that gives them up to 60 days to deal with the tough stuff. It doesn't look like that's what is going to happen. So the tough stuff on on nuclear and also on the opening of the Strait of Hormuz without the tolling, if you watch JD Vance this morning on both CBS and CNBC, that isn't ironclad, that there won't be tolls when it reopens. The deal is similar to the JCPOA, seemingly, but not in this important aspect, which is we had other countries that signed on to the JCPOA. So this is a one-way or a two-way agreement between the U.S. and Iran. JCPOA, you say how great that the Gulf states are involved in this. JCPOA was all of Europe. The Chinese and the Russians were signed onto it. Right now, we don't have any friends going into this deal together.
Of course they would sign on to it.
What?
Of course they would sign on to it because it wasn't America first.
Okay. And the money question really matters.
We got to go.
I've spoken less than everybody else. Let me finish.
Compared to who?
Everybody else on the panel except maybe
combined?
Dana.
You mean combined? That's a little weird. We all have our little time frames. I haven't talked as much as you. I'm
It's
just
your
sitting here looking
block.
great.
When I ask you about robot dogs or whatever, I only say like 4 words in the D block. Just quickly on the money front.
All right.
Arguably, they have already gotten, first of all, the sanctions relief, but also the U.S. brokered a financial deal between the Qataris and the Iranians, meaning they already got money transferred. And you're talking about huge sums, $24 billion, $300 billion investment fund that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff want really bad so they can continue building luxury resorts or whatever they're going to go do with it. The Obama deal was only $1.7 billion in unfrozen assets of their money, and they could only get to 3.7% enriched uranium.
Okay. Anything else? You want to talk about anything else? Did you have a good weekend?
I was in Maine. It was beautiful.
That's fantastic. Did you run into your old friend Plattner?
I did not.
All right.
Come again. Let's point out we don't know the exact text of the memorandum of understanding. Yet all of these pronouncements are being made about it like they've read the whole thing.
Oh, I agree. In fact, Jack Reed, frankly, is full of crap. I cannot believe he made comments like that. What he didn't tell you on that show yesterday was the restrictions that we did not put on the Iranians, and that was the sunset clauses. That's what frustrated us during the first term. And so when he says things like that, he really just saying that for political purpose, not for purposes to explain it to the American people. I think that's one of our obligations, is we need to have the American electorate fully informed of what's happening. Go left limit to right limit. Tell them that. I should tell my people when I ran the National Security Council, you have an obligation to tell the president everything from left to right, and then he makes the decision because he got the Electoral College votes. We didn't. But that happened yesterday, and when he said that, I just couldn't believe it. I said, I don't believe he's saying things like that because he's lying to the American people about what the restrictions were. Tell the American people why we got out of the JCPOA and why it's not like Obama. And the biggest thing were the sunset clauses. They could enrich uranium starting this year if that plan was in effect.
All right, now to our other top story. President Trump huddling with world leaders, G7 summit well underway in France. He took some questions a short time ago, telling reporters the world will see the text of that memorandum of understanding, the MOU they call it. They'll see it with Iran, quote, pretty soon. He was asked if he's attending the deal signing ceremony expected in Switzerland on Friday and said the following.
Well, it depends. JD's coming in for it. He was originally going to do it. I'll probably be gone by then. We're having dinner in a day and a half, right? We're going to be staying quite late. So I may be involved, I may not. But JD was coming in for that specifically.
Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy is live in Geneva, Switzerland, bringing us up to date there. And Peter, good evening where you are. And what is the schedule? Hello.
And Bill, this is the talk of the town here on the shores of Lake Geneva. We are told by a U.S. official that $0 of frozen Iranian money has been released by the United States or any other country. So you got to wonder, what's in it for Iran? Why would they do this? Well, they think that they're going to get access to a $300 billion fund to rebuild damage done during this war.
The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
Well, Ed, that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation.
Lindsey Graham, not so sure. He says, I am somewhat concerned that Iran's view of the agreement seems different than what the American negotiating team is claiming. Under our law, any nuclear deal with Iran will be sent to Congress for review and a vote. I look forward to reviewing the final product. At some point, though, Iran may see sanctions placed on them by the United States lifted, but the president and the vice president have both said today a lot has to happen first.
It's really a behavioral thing. If they do what they're supposed to do, that starts taking effect.
If we see the Iranians making, for example, taking action to eliminate their stockpile of enriched material, then yes, sanctions relief will follow.
So the Iranians might get paid, just not for a while. And we have been told that President Trump is still TBD for the signing ceremony here on Friday. But the U.S. delegation will definitely include Vice President Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner.
Okay. We will take it day by day and sometimes hour by hour. Thank you, Peter. Nice to see you. Thank you. I want to bring in Dr. Nazi Moinian, Middle East Institute adjunct fellow. She was raised in Tehran, immigrated to the U.S. at the revolution, 1979, almost 50 years ago. And good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
You've been following it quite closely. Based on what you've heard and what we think we know, are we on the right track?
Well, I find your words hour by hour exactly how it's summed up. Everything changes very quickly. There's a lot we don't know. There's very little we know, actually. We know that this is a peace deal. I want to push back against that. This is a memorandum of understanding. It's a problem with syntax. It's just a pause in hot activity of the hostilities between the two so that the strait can be opened and the oil and the petrochemicals can flow. It's not complete, as the White House had sent a note out, and there's a lot that needs to be done before we can jump into any conclusions.
Okay, so he was asked about the MOU today and said the following as to when we may get a chance to see it.
Mr. President, when will the text of the MOU be released?
I think pretty soon. I would say, I want it to be released because it's a very powerful document. It's not like the Obama document, which was just a terrible document. This is a very powerful document, and I want it to be released. So probably pretty soon. I would say sometime after Friday.
So Friday obviously is 4 days from now. At the time that he was holding that question and answer in Switzerland, in France, I should say, some of his senior administration officials were saying within 24 to 48 hours. And we know that the details are in the fine print here.
That's exactly right. I find it interesting and not at all surprising that the president invoked President Obama in his speech right now. I think the president has two ghosts that he has to contend with, President Carter in 1979 and President Obama in 2015 with the JCPOA. And he has to be very careful not to repeat those legacies with Iran. I know Iran has been a complicated problem, a thorn to the side of many presidents since its inception. President Trump has called the right shots with the assassination of Qasem Soleimani in 2020, withdrawal from the JCPOA in 2018, and June 12th war, which is just January. A few days ago. I think I have sat on this chair before and I have explained that we were on the right track. I think that's the question you asked me before the camera started. we had the Iranian regime where it hurt. They were not able to export and sell their oil between $200 to $500 million a day. They were hemorrhaging money. Then the truth was in the pudding. We had Vahidi, who's the IRGC commander, basically begging the reporter, saying, what is $20 billion to you Americans? Why don't you release the money? That only meant that they were under extreme economic pressure. I argued that this should have gone on more. We should have extended.
And many have. And
many have.
That was the case. Democrats are jumping all over this thing right now. They're saying it's an awful situation. On screen, here's Tommy Vitor saying that Trump accomplished none of his goals and lost the war to Iran. Iran now knows it can crater the global economy at any time. Not so sure about that. Michael McFaul, the Strait of Hormuz was open before Trump's war. He cannot claim its reopening as a victory. Illogical. Senator Chris Murphy, who's always on Trump's back, says Trump has humiliated America. He accomplished none of his goals. He was forced to surrender on Iran's terms. Look at what has happened, though. You get the Strait back open, the oil flows, and now you get into negotiations of the nuclear program, and you have the opportunity and the ability to watch Iran again when it comes to nukes. How about that?
That's exactly right. And thank you for saying that. We're just at the beginning of this process. Iran has historically sabotaged itself. This is a regime that finds it hard to behave, especially under American terms. It has 60 days to mess up this memorandum of understanding. So, you know, it remains to be seen. The details need to come out. The deal needs to be released. We have to be able to read this deal. And don't forget, Congress has to evaluate and then decide finally on it.
And if you get the internet back 100%, we'll get a sense really about how the Iranian people are feeling. That has been an absent part of this story because the regime has shut it down. Doctor, nice to see you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
We'll see what comes next.
Yes.
I was retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and former Army intelligence officer Chuck DeVore. Chuck, it's good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Let's start with the position where these negotiations begin. After months of bombing, this starting point for negotiations seems much different than it was under President Obama.
Well, absolutely, because the facts on the ground changed. That bombing, first with Midnight Hammer about a year ago, and then with the Epic Fury campaign, destroyed a good portion of Iran's defense and nuclear infrastructure. It destroyed, for example, the specialty steel factory that made the missile bodies. It turned to rubble the centrifuges and the storage facility for that highly enriched uranium, that nuclear dust, as the president calls it. Destroyed the Navy, destroyed the Air Force, significantly degraded the missile capacity. So Iran of today is not the Iran of 4 months ago, that's for sure.
Chuck, set aside the deal for one moment. How much do you think that bombing campaign set back Iran's progress towards a nuclear bomb?
So excluding any sort of economic sanctions, I'd say about 15 years, especially because you have to marry not only the nuclear technology, but you got to marry that up with a delivery system, with a missile that can reach targets.
Okay, now let's get to the prospects of this deal. We'll start with the money. There's a lot of concern about sanction relief for the Iranians. The administration repeats that there will be no sanction relief unless there are provable terms that Iran has committed to living up to this deal.
Absolutely. So again, huge difference from the JCPOA. What we're talking about here is if Iran actually demonstrates compliance, they get a little bit of relief. And so that is a completely different mechanism than the mechanism that President Obama erected with the JCPOA.
All right, now this is a memorandum of understanding, one we expect to be signed within the next week, digitally signed according to the vice president now, but a signing ceremony later this week. But then there's living up to the deal, Chuck. And the Iranians' word is not worth anything. Their signature on a piece of paper, probably not worth a lot more. It's how they behave that will matter. Now, I understand if their economy is hurting, they're going to want sanction relief. In order to get sanction relief, they got to live up to the deal.
Right.
But there will always be a question of whether or not they're hiding, whether or not they're lying, whether or not they're doing something beyond the deal.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's where we need to see the details of the deal once that memorandum of understanding becomes public and we begin to see with granularity what sort of rights do we or some accepted third party have to go on the ground, not just technical verification with our satellites, but boots on the ground to actually see what's going on. I think that's a key part of it. Another key part of it, which I am very concerned about, is Iran's proxy network? What does Hezbollah do? What does Hamas do? What do the Houthi rebels do? We already know that they're using Hezbollah as a way to try to drive a wedge between the U.S. and our ally Israel. Because, of course, Israel has a doctrine that says we will not leave any attack unresponded to. And so you already are beginning to see this effort by presumably the hardliners and the IRGC to drive a wedge between the U.S. and Israel and try to blow up this deal.
All right, we have a 60-day window now to flesh out the details of this memorandum of understanding, and then who knows what type of time frame, to your point, to see how they'll behave under the deal, and to your other point, who wins power inside of Iran. And that will be what we'll watch here in the coming future. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coordinator during President Trump's first term. So what do you think of the situation there and the scene in Evian-les-Bains at the G7, a bunch of leaders who wouldn't lift a finger to help President Trump? And now, I guess maybe when he gets a good night's sleep, he may have a few words with them.
Yeah, John, looks pretty nice. I wonder what the tone of the conversations will be once all the leaders retreat into a closed room. These conversations tend to be much more candid and sharp-elbowed in private than when the cameras are rolling and everybody is smiling with thumbs up. I think they're going to want to hear from the president what the American people want to hear from the president. What is the deal with Iran? We're hearing a lot of spin coming out of Tehran. We're hearing counter arguments and counter descriptions coming from administration officials. So I think all of us are very eager to read the fine print in this deal, because that's really going to determine whether the Iranian threat is effectively neutralized or whether they live to fight another day.
Hey, I just want to stick with this G7 for a second, because the president had a quick bilateral meeting with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, in which Macron said, now that everything's over, France is ready to step up. Listen here.
We are ready to take our fair share of the burden and be part of the commitment of the international community in order to support this deal. And we will discuss about that together and with colleagues later on. But it's a very important step towards peace.
I just about choked on my baguette when I heard him say that. It's like, where have you been for the last 3 months?
Yeah, better late than never. And I mean that only slightly facetiously. Obviously, you'd prefer to go to war with your allies. That didn't happen here. But if they're involved in the mopping up operation, that's actually still really important. And I don't want to downplay it. It's going to be essential for us to reopen the strait. And the Iranians are probably going to cheat no matter what they say on paper. There's going to be a risk that they are going to walk back their commitments and try to put pressure on ships transiting through the strait. So if we've got the French and the Brits and other allies who are prepared to step up in the future to prevent that, I think we should be grateful for it, even if we would have preferred that kind of help a little sooner.
So part of this deal, and the president says that Iran has agreed to this, is to give up and destroy the nuclear dust. Exactly how to do that, though, is unclear. Here's what the president said to the Wall Street Journal. We'll get the nuclear dust later, and when we're ready to go in and do it. I'd say over the next month or two, there is no rush. I asked a senior administration official last week, how do you go in and get it? The president has said only the United States or China have the technology to be able to dig down and get to where it is. And obviously, it's an extremely hazardous material situation. So you've got to have the appropriate protection for that. You've got to have the appropriate experts go down and do it. I mean, what are you going to do? Fly a team from the United States into Iran and have the Iranians oversee them do it? Would it be under the auspices of the IAEA? How do you think that would work?
Well, that's a great question, John. And I think that's one of the things that we'll need to see spelled out in more detail. There's a number of different ways you could do this. I mean, you could do it under fire. We actually have trained U.S. military personnel who've trained for exactly that scenario. With the ceasefire announced, that's probably not the most likely scenario. So maybe you send in energy department teams. Maybe it's the IAEA. I don't think we want to leave it up to the Iranians to go get it and hand it over. Trust them that they're going to be completely clean and transparent about, yeah, this is all of it and there's nothing left behind. So I think we're going to have some kind of realistic monitoring and enforcement to ensure we got all the dust.
So there's a lot of concerns that hardliners within Iran may do whatever they can to try to derail this deal from being signed by Friday. But then there's also the question of Israel. President Trump has had conversations with Netanyahu, telling him to cool it, to back down, not upset the apple cart. But listen to what Itamar Ben-Gvir, who's Israel's national security administrator, said on X. He said quote, we're not partners to this agreement that does not ensure our security, and it does not bind us in any way. We must not compromise on anything less than the dismantling of Hezbollah. We must not withdraw from any territory that our fighters have captured and cleared of terror infrastructure. Sounds like Israel might not be willing to play ball on this.
Yeah, it's something to watch, John. Israel has been under threat by Hezbollah ever since the October 7th attacks back in 2023. And Iran cares about this, not because it has a soft spot in its heart for the Lebanese people, but because Iran correctly knows that Hezbollah is its principal terror proxy to be used against Israel. So Israel is never going to accept a situation, and nor should we expect it to, where there is a terrorist group right on its borders launching rockets and missiles and drones at its people. America would never say, oh, well, you know, there's terrorists in Canada and Mexico, but the Brits don't want us to respond. That wouldn't work for us, and I don't think it's going to work for Israel either.
So there's one other big unknown out here, and that is the Straits of Hormuz are supposed to be open after the deal is signed in Switzerland on Friday. But there's such a decentralized command and control with the IRGC. What happens if, and I'm only postulating an if here, they sign the deal, they declare the Strait of Hormuz to be open, a tanker goes through, and some rogue idiot from the IRGC fires a drone at it?
It's a great question, and we won't know whether that's a rogue idiot or whether that was actually an order given from on high. That's back to your earlier question about freedom of navigation operations to reopen the strait. In a situation like that, we may have to restore kinetic pressure on the Iranian regime, attacking in response to their provocation. And it would be nice to have some allies who are there with assets and capabilities in the region to help apply that pressure. We don't want to have to go back to war, even on a small scale like that. And the way to deter that is to have robust military capabilities, ours plus our allies, so the Iranians don't even try.
All right. Well, a lot of unknowns between now and Friday, and this thing is sort of on tenterhooks, I guess. We'll see if it actually comes through as we continue to watch these pictures. Nathan, thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Oh, we got to get to JD Vance. No, we can't do this one. Give me a second. And Obama actually spoke on Donald Trump's deal with Iran. Oh, mercy. Hold on. I think it is here. It must be this one. Here we go. Am I garbage? Mercy. I'm whatever you think I am. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna share this. Let me know what you guys think. Hang on, here it is. I mean, I'm not forcing you to watch.
In just one moment, we will be joined by the Vice President of our country. JD Vance is in studio with us. Great to have you. No topic off limits, including the historic peace agreement with Iran that defied expectations, got across the finish line, thanks in part to the Vice President. We will discuss the President's trip that is ongoing now for the G7. Okay. What does the Vice President think about Graham Plattner, James Tallarico, other radical Democrats running the midterms? What about 2028? And will Vice President Vance make it official tonight right here and throw his hat in the ring? As you can see, a lot of ground to cover. And why is he going on The View, including the Vice President's very first book since his world-famous Hillbilly Elegy? It's entitled Communion, Finding My Way Back to Faith. It is officially out tomorrow. Amazon.com, Hannity.com, bookstores all around the country. And without further ado, Mr. Vice President, how are you?
Good to see you, Sean.
Good to see you. I don't get to see you in person a lot.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Okay, so you start off this life in Appalachia and very tough upbringing, very poor upbringing, difficult times, abuse at home. Your mom struggled with addiction. You have a devout grandmother. Now you're the Vice President. You're 41 years old, and now you're negotiating what might be the path to peace in the Middle East for the first time in however many thousands of years. Not a bad life.
Not a bad life at all, man. Only in America. And I think that if you have a life like I've led,
you have to have incredible gratitude to the country. And the best way to show that gratitude is just try to do as good of a job as humanly possible. That's what I write about in the book fundamentally, is this sense that, you know, my life has been so charmed. In some ways, things have been a struggle, but in a lot of ways, man, I've just been so blessed. And there's this sense that God was always looking out for me, even when I strayed from the path, even when I called myself an atheist. That faith that my grandmother had sort of imbued me with was always there in the background. And of course, it's an important part of the way that I go about my duties today, but it's just an important part of who I am. It fundamentally illuminates everything else about me. And hopefully people will pick up the book and learn a little bit about me and learn a little bit about my faith journey, and maybe it'll be useful to them.
Well, we'll get into that in more detail. All right, so let's talk about the Iranian deal.
Sure.
What frustrates me about the Iranians, Donald Trump says A, and somebody will come out, some aspect of that government, and contradict what the president said.
Yeah.
And they came out with, quote, a memorandum of understanding, which is what was signed, official signing on Friday in Geneva. And it contradicted a lot of what the president said. Any of that true?
No, it's not. So I've seen a lot of misinformation out there. I've seen $24 billion going from the United States to Iran. That number is totally false, totally made up. Fundamentally, what this thing does, Sean, is you got to appreciate is, number one, the Straits of Hormuz are open immediately. You already see oil prices coming down substantially, and I think they're only going to come down even further. Number two, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And number three, it does go and say, look, if the Iranians are willing to change their ways, if they're willing to behave like a normal country, stop trying to build a nuclear weapon, stop trying to fund terrorism all over the Middle East, then we are willing to actually fundamentally transform our relationship with them. That's what the president has offered. Now, of course, we would need to verify that. We would need to see real progress and real action.
They
not
know
just
that's
words.
part of the deal?
Absolutely. It's written right there in the agreement, Sean. And here's the thing. Yes, you're right. Sometimes when, you know, information about this deal will leak out, you'll have somebody on a propaganda channel in that country, in Iran, who will say something that isn't true. I think it's sort of expected. It frustrates me too, but it's expected that some Yahoo is going to say something about the deal that is untrue. What really bothers me and frustrates me and is unexpected, when the American media literally picks up talking points and propaganda from the RIGC that has no support in the text of the agreement that we've actually negotiated and no basis in reality. This is good for the American people. The Iranians don't get a dime unless they behave and change their behavior. And this means that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, Sean.
When you
That's
say
why we
they
did
don't
this.
get a dime, do they ever get an American dime, a taxpayer dollar?
No. So number one, first of all, they never get a dime of American taxpayer money, ever. Full stop. Not even close.
Okay.
What we have said is there's a lot of economic benefit in the United States relieving a lot of sanctions and welcoming them back into the world economy. There's a lot of benefit there, not American money, but there's a lot of economic prosperity that can flow from that. What the president said to them is, we want you to be a successful country, but for you to be a successful country, you've got to give up on this threat. You've got to give up on this desire to have a nuclear weapon. And if you do that, the United States is willing to have a much better relationship.
All right, let me go to this. The number one report that I've been reading leading up to this interview tonight is that the Qataris are giving them $300 billion with the sign, sealed, and approval of the U.S. The president did put out a truth, denying all of it. Iran has agreed to never have a nuclear weapon, and the story that the U.S. is paying Iran $300 million is fake news. We are not giving them an American dollar, number one, true. And number two, did the U.S. ever sign off on the Qataris paying them that money?
No, we've not. The agreement says they are not getting a single dime of American money. That's just not what this is. What the agreement does say, Sean, is, again, if the Iranians behave and if there are sanctions relief and if the Iranians are integrated into the world economy, we would invite other countries, not us, but other countries to invest in their country. That's fine, but only if they comply with the terms of the agreement. Really, we have an option here, right? The president of the United States has given us optionality, which is great for the American people. Step back for a second. Their conventional military is destroyed. Their nuclear weapons program is destroyed. The Strait of Hormuz is now open. Now, we have two pathways.
Is it open toll-free?
It is open toll-free, and that's very explicit in the agreement. But now we have two pathways we can go down. Pathway number one is the Iranian economy continues to be strangled We don't want that. That's not our desire. But in order for them to get pathway 2, which is reintegration into the world economy, they have to behave like a normal country. It's a very simple principle, actually. And what's different about this than previous iterations of the Iranian government, previous negotiations, is one, the president's negotiating from a position of strength. But number two, we're actually talking directly to them. And I can't tell you, Sean, if 5 years down the road, they're going to honor that commitment, because I can't predict the future. What I can tell you is if they don't honor their commitments, they don't get a dime from anybody, the United States ever, but a dime from anybody else either.
The president has told me many times, he said, I can go back to bombing and obliterate them in 5 minutes at any point I want. How important was it, the 2 attacks that took place last week, one after an Apache helicopter of ours was hit?
Well, what it did, Sean, is it showed that we were serious, that there really are 2 options here. There's the military option, there's the diplomatic option. And if they were not going to choose the diplomatic option, then the president still had military options to use. But it's not just that, Sean. One of the things the American media has totally underreported is you talk about the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians try to close off the strait to try to choke off the world energy economy. The American media has totally underreported the fact that over the past 3 weeks, we've gotten more oil out of the Strait of Hormuz under the supervision of United States Central Command than we had the first 3 months of this operation. What does that mean? That means the Iranians' leverage was reducing by the day. That means that our position was growing stronger by the day. And I think that's why we've cut what is fundamentally a good deal for the American people, assuming the Iranians follow through. And if they don't follow through, there's no skin off our back. Nothing changes from where we are right now.
A lot of people are questioning, why not release the memorandum of understanding? You said it will happen this week.
Correct. So there are some diplomatic protocols, Sean. There are some sequencing that the Pakistanis have been involved in this, the Qataris have been involved in this. And what the president has said is the agreement will come out on Friday. He may decide to release the agreement sooner than that, but we have this formal ceremony on Friday, and that's when the president right now wants to release the memorandum.
Let me get to this, because this is the most important thing. And the president has been most consistent on this point, and that is they cannot and will never have a nuclear weapon.
Correct.
How will we be able to verify that? Will we have American inspectors on the ground? What happens to the nuclear dust? Will it be degraded, or will it be removed? Will we be a party to that? Like, will it reflect what we did in Libya years ago?
So what we're going to do, Sean, is destroy the highly enriched material, the nuclear dust, as we call it. And, we're going to do it with the Iranians. That's what the president has said. He wants us to work with the Iranians, with the international organizations, to destroy that stockpile of enriched material, because that does set them back a little bit further. We've already fundamentally destroyed their program, but that does set them back a little bit further. And that's important, of course, to the United States.
And they're agreeing never to enrich.
They're agreeing right now to eliminate the enriched stockpile. And if they don't get to a point where they agree to stop enriching, then they don't get the other benefits of the bargain. And that's the way this is set up, is a lot of the technical details we're going to figure out over the next month, over the next 2 months. But the basic structure is they can get a lot if they comply with the United States demands. They don't get anything if they don't comply with anything.
One of the more frightening things we learned in Epic Fury is the ballistic missile range. They can hit Paris, they can hit
That's right.
London. Does that have to come to an end?
That's part of not funding terrorism. They have to stop being a force for regional instability in the region. And if they don't get any of the benefits of the bargain. And that's what's so brilliant about the way the president has structured this, is he's saying, look, there are so many things that are possible for the people of Iran. Greater prosperity, greater economic integration with the world. But to get those things, they have to behave like a normal country. Stop funding terrorism, stop trying to develop a nuclear weapon. And that really is the trade-off here. It's fundamentally, the ball is in the Iranians' court, Sean, because we're better off regardless. Their nuclear program is destroyed, whatever route they choose. The Strait of Hormuz is open, whatever route they choose. Their conventional military is destroyed, whatever route they choose. This gives the Iranians optionality to either become a normal country or not, but the United States is in a much better position regardless of what they choose.
You expressed an optimism that kind of surprised me earlier today in believing that the relationship has changed. You referred to and referenced the fact that for the first time in 47 years, America is going directly to the leadership there,
Correct.
including hardliners and the more political aligned. That's true.
That is true. We've never had this level of direct communication with the Iranian leadership. Of course, the previous generations of Iranian leadership are largely gone thanks to what's happened over the last few months. But there's something else that's interesting, Sean. You talk about hardliners and moderates. What's fascinating to me about their system is that we're seeing even people that I would have assumed are hardliners who are kind of saying, you know what, maybe it was a mistake for us to do the things that we've done over the last 40 years. Maybe we should turn over a new leaf in the relationship with the United States of America. As the president always says, Sean, do we trust anyone? No, we don't trust anyone. We do verify and we do extend this hand and say, look, if you guys are willing to change, we're willing to change how we've dealt with you too.
Let's talk about any place, anywhere, anytime, U.S. inspectors.
That's
part of the deal?
Yeah, that's absolutely something that we are negotiating over, Sean. That's one of the final details that's going to be figured out here is if you go back to the original Obama JCPOA, there were a couple of big problems with it. Number one, by the way, is that the Gulf Arabs hated the Obama deal. Why? Because they thought that it empowered the Iranians to be a malign actor. It actually enriched the Iranians while they were misbehaving. This deal, the Gulf Arabs love, because they know that this is the kind of deal that can fundamentally transform the Middle East. Another problem with that deal is that the inspections regime was effectively non-existent. There was a little bit there, but it was basically non-existent. This goes back to our fundamental principle here, that if they show verifiable commitment, and that means a real inspections regime, then they can get the benefits of the bargain.
Obama took a shot and said, I don't think this deal is any better than the deal we had before. The JCPOA was dramatically different than what you were describing here tonight.
And I'd ask the president, the former president, I'd say, Obama, why in the world, if it's the same thing, why is it that the Gulf Arabs hated your deal and they love our deal? They are the ones who are in the region. They know what it means to enrich the worst terrorist regime in the world. And they also know what it means to turn over a new leaf and to go to a different future. So I think President Obama, he should acknowledge that the people who are closest to this, they love the Trump deal. They hate the Obama deal. And that's maybe the biggest endorsement of this plan.
Okay, so I just want to just bear down. They're going to hand over the nuclear dust. They're agreeing to no nuclear weapons. They're agreeing to inspections. They don't get one U.S. taxpayer dollar. And, okay, you really believe that a regime that I would argue could not be trusted, I refer to it as a death cult, that what brought them to this point? What changed? Is it they're now at their fourth tier of leadership? What do you think changed?
I think it's a combination. First of all, I don't believe anything, Sean.
No.
It's very important. As the president has said, we have to verify. We're going to reward action. We're not going to reward words. But fundamentally what's changed is, number one, we're on the third or fourth generation of leadership. That is true. Number two, they've seen that the president is serious. They've seen that he's willing to exert that leverage and actually do what's necessary in order to force the Iranians to come to the table. And number three, Sean, this is important. It's underreported. Their economy has been in a free fall for a very long time. So you combine the president's leverage that he's put on them, you combine the new leadership, and you combine the fact that their economy is in shambles. And I think that they see there's a real opportunity here to turn over a new leaf, so long as they do the right thing.
So on the verification process, once we get along, they're either going to go along with the commitments they made or what is next. And what do you say to the people like me that have been very skeptical of the regime for all these years? Number one, state sponsor of terror, death to Israel, death to America. I'm skeptical. If this is all true, Reagan talked about this in '85. He said there might be an opportunity for peace in that region, and it might be all of these countries finally getting along. And you even expressed hope that that might be a result of this.
Well, again, I'll tell you, the Gulf Coast countries under the president's leadership, they actually feel that that's possible. They don't believe anything either. They're not certain. They're not going to predict what the Iranians are going to do 5 years from now, but they see real opportunity. So we're going to walk down this pathway. We're going to see how serious the Iranians are. And Sean, you asked, what if they don't meet these obligations? What if they don't do what they promised they're going to do? Number one, they don't get any benefits of the bargain. And as the president would say, we have all the cards. Their economy will still be in very tough shape if they don't get the relief that they need to get in order to make progress. We're still going to have incredible military might. We're still going to have diplomatic leverage over them. We have the cards, and if they don't honor the commitment, we'll figure out what to do when we get there.
So basically, the president, if I had to guess or interpret, I've known President Trump for 30 years. I would say that means go back and resume bombing.
It could.
It could be. And he would, I don't think he would hesitate.
It could mean the blockade goes back on, Sean. It could mean a lot of things. But what the president has said is he doesn't want to do those things. He wants Iran to be a normal country. They've got to act like it.
Let me ask you this. This is more philosophical because I have found that, and I've known Donald Trump, President Trump, for 30 years. And some people have been trying to portray him as an isolationist. I'm like, well, he wiped out the ISIS caliphate, took out Soleimani, took out Baghdadi and associates, dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan, and committed to Midnight Hammer, Epic Fury, and Maduro. That's not an isolationist.
No, he's never been an isolationist. What he is, Sean, is I would say he has an America First foreign policy. He uses American economic and military power to pursue the interests of the American people. Now it's interesting, though, Sean. People always ask me, how do you make sure that the Iran war doesn't become a quagmire like maybe some of these conflicts were back in the early 2000s? And I always say the way that you prevent that is that you do what Donald Trump is doing. You set clear objectives, you accomplish those objectives, and then you reevaluate whether you want new objectives or whether you've accomplished what you need to accomplish. And that's why the president has been able to do, you think about it, very discreet, very successful military operations that are part of a broader strategy to make America better off.
What should Americans take away from what you are saying here today, the hope you're expressing that we've turned a corner, this conflict can end, and what about other countries that may remain in conflict with them? Obviously, Israel would be one.
Yeah, well, look, if this deal works, and if we actually get the things that we expect out of this negotiation, then we're going to have broader regional stability and peace. The reason why our Arab allies, our Gulf allies are so excited about this is because they think this is a new day in the Middle East. But again, if it's not, then it's not. If the Iranians don't comply, then we're going to go back to the same relationship that we had before, where we have all the cards. I really do believe, if you think about this from the perspective of the Israelis, and obviously, we care most about the American people, but the Israelis have been good partners on a lot of this stuff. Our perspective is this has eliminated the Iranian nuclear threat. That's good for Israel. It's also good for the rest of the region. We've substantially weakened their economic and military might. That's good for Israel and also the rest of the region.
Well,
this deal is going to be good for everybody. It's going to be good for the whole world.
I could never understand after October 7th, if you extrapolate out their population in Israel versus ours, that's the equivalent of 40,000 dead Americans in a day.
Sure.
Donald Trump's president, if J.D. Vance is president, 40,000 Americans die in a day. What would you do?
Go absolutely crazy. The American people would demand a significant response. I mean, we saw this on September 11th, Sean.
Yeah.
We knocked out 2 countries that were involved in terrorism purely because of 9/11. We have to respond to terrorism, but I think what the president has done here is very effective. He has, I think, defanged the largest state sponsor of terrorism. He's ensured they're never going to get a nuclear weapon. And now he's actually saying, you know what? Now that you're in a position where you don't have leverage over us, we have leverage over you. Let's make a deal.
Take a break. More with J.D. Vance on the other side, live in studio. All right, thanks for watching.
Okay, what you guys think about what's going on with Iran and Donald Trump? Okay, let me play Obama's response for you. It's my first day back, you guys, so I'm feeling a little but I got you. Give me a second.
President Trump is on his way to the G7 summit after reaching a deal with Iran. Trump reportedly telling the New York Times the deal will still allow Iran to continue enriching uranium for non-military purposes. Former President Obama casting doubt on how it's different from his own deal.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place and had worked for a long stretch of time before the United States pulled out of it.
bring in Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen. Mark, I would say this to the former president's point. The difference is that the president dismantled their military in full.
Yeah.
Of course, you got some missiles still left, and it takes away the uranium that is there. So I would say that's the key difference, right?
Well, first of all, it's the exact same deal except for 14,000 military strikes that buried their entire nuclear program under rubble so deep that the Iranians have told us that they actually can't get to it. If we want the nuclear dust, we're going to have to come in and get it. Destroyed 82% of their defense industrial base, sunk their entire navy, grounded their entire air force, and also, by the way, the Ayatollah Khamenei, Qasem Soleimani, and like the top 2 tiers of their leadership are dead. But other than that, it's exactly like the Obama nuclear deal.
Yeah, so tell me, there are some concerns, and let's go through the proposed deal.
Yeah.
The presumption of, the resumption of the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. It ends the blockade on Iran. Negotiations around nuclear enrichment, disposal and enrichment. That's the president saying he's going to get rid of that dust within the next 60 days. And then some sanctions release, and then the release of some of the frozen Iranian funds tied to Tehran's compliance. Okay, so, and then of course, can't forget about the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Yeah.
What are your concerns? Because, you know, I look at it, and I said this early in the show, the president has now put Iran in a cage, and I believe he will leave them there. But there will be another president. And the question is, will they keep him there?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, we don't know the details of the deal yet. We don't know what has been agreed to, and the nuclear part is still to be negotiated. This is just an agreement to negotiate the nuclear side. So that's one problem. Another problem is that Trump's only going to be president for 2.5 years.
Yes.
And at some point, we could have another weak president like Barack Obama, like Joe Biden, and they're not going to comply with it. And the third problem is that the Iranian regime, thanks to all those military strikes, is on its back. And a deal, even a good deal, helps them get up. Because, I mean, right now, we're opening up the strait, we're lifting the blockade. That's billions of dollars going into the Iranian regime's coffers without them having done anything.
Yeah.
And then apparently we're going to give them, sanctions relief and reconstruction based on performance. But that means that we're going to be giving them a lifeline to revive their regime after we had decimated it. That is a huge problem. Because the Iranians may comply for a short period of time, but then we're going to have a weak American president, and they're going to have gotten the money. And then there's talk of a reconstruction fund of hundreds of billions of dollars. They'll be like doing a Marshall Plan for Germany while the Nazis were still in power. So I'm anxious to see what the details of the deal are and what gets negotiated, but I'm concerned. I agree.
I'm out of time, Mark, but also that last element of the proxies. It has to be clear that Israel is not attacking Lebanon, but they are attacking Hezbollah, which is funded by Iran. And that portion, if this is included in the deal, that portion alone is going to blow this up very quickly if not handled appropriately. Thank you so much for joining the program.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One. As we look at 250 in America, there are now 7 states said to be skipping the Great American State Fair in Washington, D.C. Kicking off next week as part of America 250 celebrations. Think anybody would want to be a part of that, right? Some blame the cost, according to the New York Times. The states all run by Democrats with the exception of Vermont. Now, this comes after some musicians also dropped out, but still in the lineup is Rob Van Winkle, better known as Vanilla Ice. And Rob joins me now, and hello to you, my friend.
Me
Thanks
too.
for being here.
Me too. Wait.
And thanks for performing, right? So you're going to be on the mall on June 26th. So you're sticking with that, and you're not backing down.
Heck no. This is an honor. Why would I back down? My mom even thinks it's the greatest thing ever. You know, celebrating our country, turning 250. You know, it's still the greatest country in the world. So I'm honored. I mean, for me, I can only speak for myself. I don't understand anybody else, and I can't speak for them. But for me, man, this is a great celebration. I'm honored. and look really,
Yeah,
forward to
listen,
getting everybody
I
dancing.
agree with you. And I think once we get through all of our celebrations, people are going to realize yet again how strong the red, white, and blue can be when together. Are you bringing your mom, yes or no?
She's a little too old for that, but I'd love to. She'll be there in spirit for sure.
Okay, you can FaceTime her. So help me figure this out, Rob. There was an
100%.
event in New York City just yesterday, and you would have thought that Robert De Niro would have stopped that day he showed up at the courthouse, but he's back and said this.
Our country isn't so lovable right now. I hate to say it, but loving our country is starting to sound like an abused spouse saying they love their abuser. I can't love a country that's led by a racist, misogynist, xenophobic tyrant. I can't love the country that's led by Donald Trump.
Okay, so Rob, you're not going to change his mind, period.
I don't really care to change his mind. He's all set on his thing. That's him. I can't speak for him, man. I love this country. I think it's the greatest country in the world. I'm proud to be here and do this event and be invited by the president. And who throws a better party than Trump, man? I mean, and it's not just for him. It's not just a GOP thing. This is for everybody. This is our country. And this is for the soldiers and for the, the Army, man, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the police, the EMS, the firefighters, Space Force. I mean, everybody that's a part of this and everybody who's died in the name of this country, and to honor all of the people and citizens of the country to come together. And I'm just a musician, man. My opinion doesn't mean anything. I'm just spitting this from a non-biased situation. I think that everybody should come together and just get to dancing again. Stop taking things so serious.
Well, you can
and one thing's for sure I don't believe in.
With your talent, you can contribute, and you are. I'm going to share some polling with you, okay? NBC released on Sunday, how proud are you to be an American? 56% extremely or very proud. About 22% say moderately proud. So that's a total of 77%. I'll take that any day. Here's another question now. How proud are you to be an American? This was from Gallup in January of 2001. 87% said they were extremely or very proud. You know what struck me on Friday night? Was the U.S. men's soccer team taking the field at SoFi in Los Angeles. Did you see the Star Spangled Banner? It was loud and people were singing, and it was red, white, and blue as far as the eye can see. And I'm telling you, Rob, that's what you're going to see in the mall. That's what you're going to see in New York Harbor on July 4th.
Man, I'm honored. I got goosebumps thinking about it. This is awesome. I don't see why anybody can't understand how awesome this is. Let's come together, Democrat, Republican, stop splitting the country. All these celebrities that are out there saying their opinions, they're celebrities. They're not politicians. Do you really take them serious? Come on. Enjoy the entertainment, whatever they do. Let the politicians handle what they do. Let us, as citizens of this country, come together to celebrate a birthday for the country. Stop taking things so serious, man. Let's go back to the 90s and get cheesy, and let's go bass and pull our back seats out and put in subwoofers. Let's go wear some cheesy tight pants. I mean, leave it to Beaver. Come on.
We can do all of that. You tell your mom hello, and we'll see you on the mall, okay? In late June.
My man, thank you. I'll
All
see you
right.
there.
Good to be
Put
with you,
your dancing
Rob.
shoes on. Happy birthday, America.
I dig it. There he is, Vanilla Ice. Well done. Happy birthday.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Speaking of birthdays, happy birthday to President Trump yesterday. Speaking of President Trump, the night will not be complete unless we hear from our commander-in-chief. So I'm going to leave you guys with this, okay? Here. Oh, here we go. Wait, yeah, that's it. Hang on. Wait, why isn't it playing? There you go.
Cyril is from France. Did you watch the fight?
Yeah. Not in direct, but I saw it this morning.
That was a great fight.
God,
It was a
you
great
know I had to. I had to.
Please.
Happy early birthday,
Bienvenue au
girl.
président. I will say a few words in French. Je souhaitais d'abord accueillir et souhaiter la bienvenue au président Trump, et merci d'être là un lendemain d'anniversaire et de célébration, et je remercie son équipe, les ministres, ambassadeurs et l'équipe la plus proche d'être là à ses côtés. C'est important qu'on puisse d'abord avoir ce G7 au lendemain d'un accord essentiel qui a été scellé avec l'Iran, pour parler évidemment de nos grandes crises, l'Iran, l'Ukraine, nos guerres, leur règlement, construire la paix et restaurer la prospérité, mais aussi voir les voies et moyens de coopérer entre nos économies. C'est le but du G7, pour améliorer la prospérité, les éléments de coopération dans les différents domaines. Puis nous aurons l'occasion aussi de célébrer à la française les 250 ans d'indépendance, la France ayant été aux côtés des États-Unis d'Amérique, à Versailles dans 2 jours. I wanted to say, to commend President Trump for celebration yesterday and to welcome President Trump and the ministers and his team for being here in Evian for the G7. I think yesterday was signed a very important agreement, a peace deal with Iran. And it's a very important one because first it will fix the nuclear issue. And it's a very important matter for peace for the whole world. And it will reopen Hormuz. It will provide peace in Lebanon. And so we are ready to take our fair share of the burden and be part of the commitment of the international community in order to support this deal. And we will discuss about that together and with colleagues later on. But it's a very important step towards peace, but as well for the global economy. We will have the occasion to discuss about the war in Ukraine in order to re-engage together and negotiate a good and solid peace and sustainable peace. And President Zelensky will be with us as well tomorrow. And obviously, we will have the occasion to bring this G7 to speak about a series of issues from rare earths, critical minerals, trade, etc., where we have to build convergence amongst the G7 members. And it will be the occasion for us to celebrate the 250th years of independence for the US. And Versailles is a good place because this is where the king and his minister of foreign affairs at the time did support the US during years, but as well prepared what we called the Paris Treaty in 1783, which was the final point of this war. So it's a great honor and a great pleasure to have you, Mr. President, in Evian and Paris.
Thank you. So Emmanuel has been a special friend of mine. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've worked on many deals together. I'm very happy to say signed, the deal's all signed. And the Strait is already partially opened. As you know, they're doing a little hunting for a couple of mines that they've already found. But it's essentially ships are starting to go out now. On Friday, it'll be completely opened. We got along very well with Iran. It's a different set of leaders. As you know, the first set is gone, the second set is gone. And we found the third set to be very smart, strong, very smart, but we ended up making a deal. I felt badly that we had to go back on the attack for 2 nights, and I thought a third, but we made it before that happened. But I think a lot of great things are going to happen in the Middle East right now, and very importantly, the oil is plummeting down, and the stock market is shooting up like a rocket today, like record kind of numbers. And the oil has taken its biggest plunge, and we're into the low numbers, not quite back yet, Kevin, to the extent, but we're getting close to the numbers we were before it all started. And the main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, which is what it was all about, because they probably would have used it if they had it. So we had 2 big moments when they terminated the JCPOA, that was the Obama deal, the Barack Hussein Obama deal. And when I terminated that, it was very important because it was a road to a nuclear weapon. It was a horrible deal for the United States. It was a deal where billions of dollars was given to Iran. There was a deal where 1.7 billion in cash was put on a Boeing 7, well, not a 757, I guess, right? But it was put on a big, beautiful Boeing 757. They needed a Boeing 747, to be honest with you, because there was a lot of cash. 1.7 billion was taken out of the banks and given to Iran. And on top of that, tens of billions of dollars was spent. So they tried to bribe them to make a deal, and that didn't work. It never works. And we've done a great job. And hopefully it's going to be a good relationship and we're going to get along. And if we don't, we go back to where we started, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. The Iran deal that we made is going to bring a lot of success to the world, because the oil was really clogged up there for a while. He would call me on occasion, say, "Come on, please, let's go with the oil prices." But the oil is coming way down, so I'm very honored by it. I want to thank you for your help. You've always been a help, and it's an honor to be with you. We had a very good conversation yesterday with President Zelensky and President Putin, and I see maybe we can do something there. I really do. I think they're both open to it. So I'm going to, now that this is finished, we're going to be focusing on that, see if we can get that one done. 25,000 people a month are dying, mostly soldiers, and that shouldn't happen. But had two very good conversations yesterday. We'll be talking about it. And we had a really exciting, I think maybe one of the most incredible evenings in the history of the White House. So we had an evening last night with the fighters, and I was very happy. I called last night, very late last night, to congratulate you, because in the heavyweight division, a French fighter won. I don't know, is that maybe more important than the World Cup? To some people, it might be. To some people, it might be. You have a good team in the World Cup, very good team, but you have good fighters too. And you're a great country, and it's an honor to be with you. Thank you very much.
Hey, sir, are you going to try to attend the signing ceremony on Friday?
Well, it depends. JD's coming in for it. He was originally going to do it. I'll probably be gone by then. We're having dinner in a day and a half, right? We're going to be staying quite late. So I may be involved, I may not. But JD was coming in for that specifically.
Mr. President, when will the text of the MOU be released?
I think pretty soon. I would say, I mean, I want it to be released because it's a very powerful document. It's not like the Obama document, which was just a terrible document. This is a very powerful document, and I want it to be released. So probably pretty soon. I would say sometime after Friday, because the Strait opens completely. It's open now, but it opens completely. We'll have all the mines knocked out for the most part. We have a lot of lanes right now already.
Mr. President.
So I think sometime in the very near future, yeah.
Mr. President, does the deal involve any sanctions relief for Iran? When would that go into?
No, it doesn't. Well, they have to. It's really a behavioral thing. If they do what they're supposed to do, that starts taking effect.
Monsieur Macron, quel engagement êtes-vous prêt à prendre au nom de la France dans les 3 hormones qui est parlé du porte-avions Charles de Gaulle? Mr. President, what do you expect from France and?
Well, I would love them to do that. I don't think we're going to need much help because we have an agreement where it's going to be open, and it's toll-free. We had a little argument on that. It's toll-free. So I don't think we're going to need much help, but I don't think it's a bad idea to have a ship or two up here from a few countries. It'd be a great country to do it because you never know what happens, but I think it's going to be open, and I think it's going to be free sailing. We do want to see if we can straighten out the Lebanon thing, because it just seems to just never end. And it's a mini version of what we were doing, and it should not be tough. It should not be tough. So Hezbollah, we have to have a little talk with them.
When will you actually
En français, la question qui était posée en français sur la contribution. Nous sommes prêts à avoir dès demain des chasseurs qui sont sur place et qui peuvent aider aux missions d'observation, et sous 48 heures des frégates qui peuvent évidemment se déployer. et sous 2 à 3 jours, le porte-avions avec les frégates qui l'accompagnent et l'ensemble du groupe. Évidemment, tout ça suppose d'être souhaité, demandé par les États-Unis d'Amérique, l'Iran et Oman, c'est-à-dire les parties prenantes de l'accord et les 2 parties, en particulier autour du détroit. Et nous avons agrégé avec les Britanniques une mission ad hoc où d'ores et déjà une vingtaine de pays ont donné leur contribution concrète et ce qu'ils étaient prêts à faire. Et nous sommes 4 à être présents dans la région. Donc voilà, c'est une offre, nous sommes à disposition. Ça montre le soutien de la communauté internationale, notre volonté de réouvrir ce détroit. Et comme l'a dit le président, peut-être que ça ne sera pas souhaité et peut-être que ce ne sera pas nécessaire, mais en tout cas, c'est une disposition qui marque notre volonté d'aider, de soutien et notre disponibilité. Et nous sommes prêts.
Vous êtes inquiet sur les menaces de droite
Non, on est là pour discuter. Il y a des accords qui ont été signés en avance. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
I don't know why I like this so much. I love this. I don't know, you guys. That really just, you guys didn't like that? I thought that was
Well, thank you very much, everybody.
I would love to listen to that, but I don't know how old this one is. I thought that was okay, I'll get to, yes, I'm in the United States. Okay. Let me put a video on for you. Why did I like that? I felt like you guys weren't feeling that as much as I was. Oh well, maybe I like this one better. Hang on. He just screams.
President Trump arriving at the G7 in France, selling world leaders on his new peace deal with Iran.
I think a lot of great things are going to happen in the Middle East right now.
According to President Trump, the agreement lays out in plain English that Iran will not have a weapon.
They fully agree to that with strong policing powers.
But the details have not been released to the public, and it's unclear if the agreement addresses other issues, including the regime's funding of Iranian-backed terror groups like Hamas and Hezbollah.
We're willing to give significant sanctions relief if the Iranians make the kind of long-term commitments that are necessary to be a normal country.
Critics are skeptical that the White House negotiated any major concessions beyond the Obama administration's 2015 nuclear agreement, including Obama himself.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different from the deal that we had in the first place.
And in the Gulf, the future of the Strait of Hormuz is still unclear. The president says the strait will be, quote, completely open on Friday, but there are still concerns about mines laid at the start of the war.
We've got to hold the Iranians accountable to get the mines out, and we've got to double check it ourselves.
According to President Trump, the White House will hold a signing ceremony on Friday in Switzerland, and at that time, the full text will be released. In New York, Caroline Elliott, Fox News.
And Vice President J.D. Vance posting this on X in response to that tentative deal, saying the president has been clear from day one, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Once again, President Trump's efforts to establish peace have paid off for the American people, despite countless attempts to thwart it by people who hate America and President Trump. Vice President Vance also putting out this video along with that post.
Vice President Vance here to talk a little bit about what is in the Iran deal, the great peace deal that the President of the United States made last night. Number one, what this deal means is that the Straits of Hormuz are open immediately. You're already seeing oil and gas prices come down just over the past 24 hours. Number two, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And we have to back up for a second and appreciate that what the president has done is completely decimated Iran's nuclear program. Now, this deal really has two pathways. On the one hand, if the Iranians make the long-term commitments never to rebuild, then they're going to be welcomed into the world economy. If, on the other hand, and they try to rebuild that nuclear program, they're never going to have the resources in order to do so. So it's a win-win for the American people. We ensure Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon either way. And now it's really up to the Iranians. Over the next few months, we're going to see if they're serious about dismantling that program for the long term. If they do, the president has said, we want their country to be successful. But what we know is that our country is successful thanks to great presidential leadership and a lot of good decisions. Thank you, guys.
Vice President Vance with that post on X, and also President Trump putting out a post on Truth Social, clearing up reports about what this deal includes. He said Iran has agreed to never have a nuclear weapon. Also, the story that the U.S. is paying Iran $300 million is fake news put out by the Democrats. That's President Trump putting that out on Truth Social today in response to this tentative agreement being reached between the U.S. and Iran. Will continue to follow those updates for you. Also, coming up in the next 10 minutes, Iran will be taking on New Zealand in the World Cup. That's happening in LA, and we are seeing some protests outside of the Los Angeles Stadium. This is a live look right now at a group gathered there demanding regime change in the Islamic Republic of Iran. Again, Iran taking on New Zealand in the first Group G play there in Los Angeles. That's happening there at 6 p.m. Pacific time in the next 10 minutes or so. We'll keep an eye on these protests as well and bring you those looks as we get them here on Live Now from Fox.
I would love to show you guys that documentary, but no, I'm just not coming back. We're gonna keep it light tonight. Okay. Let's see. I think this is where I left off. Whew.
And security to the whole region. The deal is said to include traffic resuming in the Strait of Hormuz, the end of the U.S. blockade. And President Trump announcing an historic peace deal with Iran on Truth Social, saying this new action will bring peace and security to the whole region. The deal is said to include traffic resuming in the Strait of Hormuz, the end of the U.S. blockade there, negotiations for Iran's nuclear enrichment and disposal of enriched uranium, sanctions relief, the release of frozen assets, and a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. But all of that not happening in that order. President Trump says oil will drop fast once the strait is officially open. Some lingering doubts from the shipping industry over how soon prices will come down. Kepler is saying that they estimate around 500 large commercial vessels are currently in the Gulf. Vessels that have been delayed or held back would need time to exit, complete their voyages, and potentially return for new loadings. That process could take roughly 2 to 3 months, but they do note that traffic in the strait is sharply higher than it has been over the last 24 hours. Immediate reaction. And joining me now for his immediate reaction is Wisconsin Congressman Derek Van Orden. Congressman, welcome. Thank you for joining us. You are a member of the House Armed Services Committee.
Marcos, you're not muted. I see you.
Years. Thank you. I want to know what you make of this deal and if you think Israel is the potential spoiler.
I think it's fantastic. We're closer to long-term peace in the Middle East than we've been in a very, very long period of time. And it's solely due to Donald Trump's efforts, period. It's fantastic. Listen, the commodities market and oil operates a lot on emotion, and the shipping insurance market is so convoluted that the folks that own these vessels have to be incredibly cautious. So with this deal, we'll see the straits being opened, no tolls being charged for the vessels transiting the Straits of Hormuz, meaning that these crude oil prices are going to drop precipitously. But most importantly, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. This incredibly dangerous, radical, Muslim mullah-controlled regime of Iran is responsible for the deaths of thousands of American citizens, including many of my friends. I served in not just in the Navy, but I love the Navy, but I was a Navy SEAL for an extended period of time, over 20 years. And these folks must never have a nuclear weapon. Imagine if Iran had a nuclear weapon now, what they could do to control the straits. So what the president has done is ordered Pete Hegseth to make sure that they get rid of the conventional aspect of the Iranian military, which they have done, and we're making sure that they do not have a nuclear weapon, or they would continue to hold the world hostage economically.
Congressman, let me ask you this. The president, when this all started, proposed the idea of the Iranian people taking over their country. But in an interview yesterday with the New York Times, he described the Ayatollah Mujtaba Khomeini as a pragmatist. What do you make of that?
Well, listen, regime change and nation building doesn't work. I was in every conflict from the first Gulf War up until Syria. And every time the United States government, through the military, tries to go into a nation and dictate to them how they're going to run their country, it simply does not work. So making sure that we can help potentially set conditions for the Iranian people to rise up, that's something we can do. But if we go in and say, you know, we are going to put American-led people into the Iranian regime for them to take over, it simply won't work. What Donald Trump has done is what no president in living history has done, and that's learned from history itself. So he understands that the Iranian people have to determine their own form of government and how they are going to govern themselves.
The state of FISA is up in the air after the Surveillance Act expired on Friday. Both chambers of Congress failing to pass an extension, but this was for the first time since FISA's inception. This is happening as World Cup matches begin across the country. They're expected to draw in more than 5 million foreign visitors. And many in Congress are raising the alarm that this lapse in surveillance threatens the country's safety. Of course, this is ahead of America's 250th celebration kicking off. I mean, Congressman, what is your take on FISA lapsing?
Well, so this FISA is not what it used to be. The needed massive reform. We passed the RISA Act. And then with this version of FISA, there's over 60 meaningful reforms to FISA itself, including criminalizing abuse of the system. And it's verbatim. If you abuse the system, you go to prison. And that's what I want to see with those rogue FBI agents. And that's what my constituents want to see. We cannot weaponize the United States government. And so this version of FISA, as I said, had over 60 very meaningful reforms to make sure if it's abused, the people that were abusing it go to prison. So in fact, this is rather dangerous to not have access to this. And remember, people are talking about having subpoenas to spy on American citizens. That is pre-existing, and it's solidified and strengthened in this version of FISA. Listen, I do not want the United States government spying on American citizens, period, nor do my constituents. And this version of FISA made sure that that would not happen. And so we do need to be very cautious. I would encourage my Republican colleagues and my Democrat colleagues to actually read the legislation and understand the over 60 meaningful reforms that were put into FISA, mostly through the RISA Act, which they voted for already.
Congressman Liz Peek, a panelist, has a question for you.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm glad to hear you say that, because no one else has been talking about the reforms that have been put in this FISA bill. But isn't it the case that Democrats we're having a hissy fit about Bill Pulte being made head DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and now that Jay Clayton has been nominated for that post? Isn't this likely just to happen? I mean, isn't that sort of removing the main obstacle?
Yeah, Liz, well, do me a favor. Don't tell anybody that I actually do all my homework and I read every piece of legislation.
I know. I mean, that's so unusual. It's so
I know,
great.
a little bit more of that in D.C. It's refreshing, isn't it? Hey, listen, right now the Democrats have proven that they're going to put national security underneath their political wants and needs. Let's remember this. Over 100 Democrats voted to not deport criminal illegal aliens that are convicted of raping and murdering American citizens. You can't circle that square or square that circle. You just can't do it. So the Democrat Party right now is not John F. Kennedy's Democrat Party. 100% no. They're willing to put politics and the lust for raw political power over the national security, and I'm simply unwilling to do that.
Thank you. Congressman Derek Van Orden, we appreciate the time. And coming up,
You're welcome.
President Trump on his way to the G7 summit in France right now after announcing this historic peace deal with Iran.
The United States has launched
Sorry, I was on mute. This one fell in my lap from my moderator. Let me share this with you guys before I get out of here. Hang on. I'm kind of enjoying this little feud right here.
From Fox, I'm Ryan Schmelz. We have some breaking news to get to. California Governor Gavin Newsom claims President Trump's Department of Justice is investigating him and his wife. We'll show you this tweet here from Governor Newsom just now. Today, my wife and I joined Donald Trump's hit list. He has directed his Department of Justice to investigate us. They have not found a crime. They are simply trying to find one. He isn't coming after me because of mean tweets, but because I am considering running for president. He hates that I consistently call him out. He is simply the most corrupt president in American history. We have nothing to hide, Mr. President. Come after me. I am not going anywhere. The country is watching. Now, Governor Newsom just posted a video on his Twitter account. So let's go ahead and take that and play that for you so we can find some more details here from the governor.
In recent days, federal agents have knocked on the doors of family, friends, and former employees. Not because they found a crime, because they're simply trying to find one. They're demanding records. They're abusing the grand jury process, digging through years and years of random documents. Donald Trump isn't just coming after me because of my mean tweets. He's coming after me because I'm considering running for president, because he hates that I've consistently called him out over and over again for his lies and deceit. Donald Trump is simply the most corrupt president in American history. He's turned the levers of government into his own personal power ministries to reward cronies and to try to jail his opponents. His personal attorney now runs the Department of Justice, which has repeatedly gone after his political enemies. Ask Jerome Powell. Sent them after James Comey, Trish James, Adam Schiff. He sent them after Tim Walz, and a woman that a jury found Donald Trump had sexually abused. One by one, anyone who has challenged Donald Trump has ended up on his hit list. And today, I proudly joined that list. After calling for my arrest last year, Donald Trump directed his Department of Justice to investigate me. And just in the last week, I've learned that his campaign has reached my own home. To get me, he's coming after my wife, Jen, a public servant, a woman who's dedicated her life to supporting women and girls, someone who has done nothing wrong other than having the temerity to advocate for what she believes in. If they can't intimidate me, they'll go after the mother of our children. Donald Trump picked the wrong target. We have nothing to hide. His political operatives can take every record and read every page, but they'll be looking in the wrong place. Because if they really want to find corruption, look no further than 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Donald Trump is selling the presidency. He's running the largest cash heist in American political history, trading foreign tariff relief for approval of his golf courses, day trading behind the Resolute desk, reaping hundreds of millions of dollars in personal profit. And he's doing it openly. He's doing it on camera. He did it last night on the White House lawn. He's doing it through cryptocurrencies. He's doing it through the receipt of a $400 million private jet from a foreign government that he plans to keep when he leaves office, through his son's ventures in countries where his own administration is simultaneously making policy. His personal fortune has skyrocketed by $4 billion since making his return to office. This is the behavior of a regime, not a republic.
Right.
The White House has become a marketplace for sneakers and coins and watches, cologne, guitars, Bibles, and phones. Influence for sale, access for sale. And today, my family and I can personally confirm that justice is for sale. To Donald Trump, who I know is watching because he watches everything, I have a message for you. You can subpoena my records. You can investigate me. You can harass me. Put my name on every and any enemies list you have, but leave my wife and family out of your personal vendetta. I'd like to say something to my wife. These times are not normal. They're not ordinary. I love you, and I'm sorry he's doing this. You have not earned a single one of the indignities that he's trying to inflict on you and our children. And to Donald Trump, this country does not belong to you. It does not belong to your cronies. And we're going to fight your lawlessness. And we're going to continue to remind the people of this country of your corruption. That same corruption our founders warned us against as we move to celebrate our 250th anniversary. I'm going to keep reminding Americans of what they warned would happen if a man with no character ever held the office of presidency. So let me say it again. Mr. President, come after me. I'm not going anywhere, and the country is watching.
I don't know if he was trying to get sympathy, but was he playing victim much? Newsom? Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you, Doc. Oh, wait a minute. I can't multitask. Let me get this. I thoroughly enjoyed that, you guys. But before I go, let me wrap it up with what I was originally talking about. But thank you for that clip. All right. Fill me in. Hold on, you guys. It's about time he's investigated. Newsom has done a lot. He's damaged California, and I will enjoy this investigation. Okay, and we will cover that investigation in full.
Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, taking a live look at the White House right now. They are getting ready to kick off the UFC Freedom 250 event there outside of the White House. Live look at that setup for you as well. A lot of people gathering there for this event, and the weather is a question there as we look at the cloudy skies up above. So we will keep an eye on that. We'll bring you those live looks as we get them here on Live Now from Fox. And another big piece of news coming out of Washington, D.C. today, we've been following President Trump announcing that the U.S. has reached a deal with the Islamic republics, putting this on Truth Social in the last couple hours, saying the deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously herewith authorize the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engines. Let the oil flow. President Donald J. Trump and the Pakistani Prime Minister also putting that information out on X, saying that both sides have declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. The official signing ceremony will be Friday, the 19th of June in Switzerland. That's according to Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. And for more on what we know about this deal so far, let's bring in with the Defense Priorities Senior Fellow, Gil Barndollar. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Gil.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So this is developing news right now, not too much information or details about this deal so far, but what do we know so far? What is your immediate reaction to this, and could things change before that official signing on the 19th?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think obviously everybody should be happy that we have a ceasefire agreement that appears both sides, finally seem to be on the same sheet of music and say this is a real deal. But it's a temporary expedient, right? It's a 60-day ceasefire, and it tables the most important issues, right? We're setting aside sanctions relief. We're setting aside, most importantly, any kind of nuclear deal. For 60 days to buy a window to negotiate those things. So an end to hostilities is really good news, but everyone should kind of hold the applause for the time being.
And we also got a little bit more info about what exactly this deal entails. We have this from Reuters' Phil Stewart saying that Iran's mayor says that the 14-article draft memorandum of understanding between Iran and the U.S. includes a number of things. Some of those bullet points saying complete lifting of the U.S. naval blockade within 30 days. It would suspend sanctions on Iranian oil and petrochemical sales, immediate permanent halt to war on all fronts, including Lebanon, reopening the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days under Iranian arrangements, necessity for U.S. and allies to present reconstruction plans for Iran amounting to at least $300 billion. Also, the draft excludes Iran's missile program and support for resistance groups from final talks. It calls for the release of $24 billion in Iranian blocked funds during the talks, and half of Iran's $24 billion blocked funds must be available before the final talks start. Also, the final Iran-U.S. agreement would be endorsed by the UN Security Council resolution. So a lot of information there coming from, that's according to Iran, to be clear. But what of those bullet points sticks out to you? Also, they're including Lebanon in this. What do we know about Netanyahu's understanding of this agreement? And could that be a sticking point with the Israeli involvement there?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me take that one first. I mean, I think we're in a position where the most important near-term question is whether the United States can and will restrain the Israelis. I mean, I think there's clearly an Israeli ability to scotch this deal, to kill this if they continue hostilities in Lebanon. And the Iranians have said that for a long time now. That's been a consistent sticking point. And if the United States is not willing to restrain the Israelis up to and including, potentially yoking back direct American military support, that this deal could die immediately if that's one of the key ingredients. So I think that's the biggest near-term concern, is that the Israelis may choose to continue hostilities against Hezbollah. There's also the possibility that Hezbollah would continue to attack the Israelis. This presupposes that Iran can restrain Hezbollah from initiating any further hostilities as well. But that's the immediate near-term sticking point. More broadly in those conditions, I mean, what sticks out is the money, right? If we're going to be giving the Iranians $12 billion right out of the gate, and then another $12 billion of unfrozen funds, and then coordinating, and it's all very vague at this stage, but coordinating $300 billion reconstruction fund, who's paying that? Probably not the U.S. taxpayer directly, or not all of it. But we are essentially paying the Iranians to end this war, is what seems very clear, even if the details are still there. So we're in a much worse position just on those merits, never mind the damage to kind of U.S. military capabilities and readiness and munition stockpiles. We're in a far worse strategic position than we were when this war got going.
And throughout the last few months, several times, President Trump has said that Iran's military is essentially destroyed, that there's nothing left of it. But as these exchanges have continued over time, what does the timing of this agreement mean now? And what makes this different than the past several months, where there have been many times that President Trump has said they were close to reaching a deal? Now that the official announcement has been made, could this stick? And what would it take for this to actually follow through and bring an end to the war?
Well, I think what's different is just that the clock is ticking, right? The longer this war goes on, the more the pain from oil and gas shortages around the world increases, and the closer it gets to the United States. We're pretty insulated by dint of having, a huge domestic oil and gas industry from this. It hit Africa very quickly, it hit Asia, although that's partially softened by the depth of Asian and especially Chinese, strategic petroleum reserves, oil reserves that they've set aside for these kinds of contingencies or for a war. But that clock is ticking, and as global oil draws down and the oil that was afloat before the war gets used up, that pain is coming to Europe and then the United States very quickly. So I think there's a sense of urgency, certainly on our part. Conversely, on the Iranian side, they are feeling real economic pain from the blockade as well. They have some ability to use overland trade routes. I mean, those have become far busier, and overland trade has increased dramatically in the last couple of months. They can trade across the Caspian Sea, but no question, being unable to import and export out of the strait hurts them as well. So there's pain to both sides that makes one kind of cautiously optimistic that this deal is more likely to stick and to have legs than all of the previous back and forth we've had for months now.
And of course, one of the main topics that people have been watching is the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, and that is outlined somewhat in this agreement. But Iran is, through their state media, saying that they will still have control of the strait with some kind of supervision, if you will, from Oman. President Trump is saying that the Strait of Hormuz is already back open. What do we know about the situation in the strait right now, and how long could that take to translate to oil prices, maybe here in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, the oil prices have not moved, I would argue, in sync with reality, right? I think oil prices have stayed, gas prices at the pump for Americans have stayed, have been better off than they probably should be, but based on the facts on the ground. So, and it seems like this deal will inject a further kind of drop in basic gas prices for Americans. However, if there are difficulties in getting it open, I don't know that would have an immediate impact. And we're not sure the depth of mining in the strait, how quickly that's going to be cleared aside. We're not sure how slow the Iranians are going to be in actually physically opening the strait. And hopefully there's not any further kind of security issues or clashes, because this thing could certainly reignite in a moment. But that draft agreement, as you put on the screen earlier, says they have 30 days to get this flowing. But I think the near-term oil stuff moves more on sentiment than it does on maybe some of the facts on the ground.
All right. Thank you so much. Defense Priorities Senior Fellow Gil Barndollar. We really appreciate your insight here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks. Pleasure talking to you.
And Vice President J.D. Vance says he will be in Geneva for that signing ceremony. Still unclear who else will be attending that. Again, President Trump announcing that a deal has been reached between the U.S. and the Islamic Republic of Iran, saying congratulations to all. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and authorize the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. This coming in just in the last couple of hours. We'll continue to follow this news and any updates as we get them.
I don't know why PBS keeps coming up on my timeline. Are you guys doing okay? Are we still friends? I'm just showing you guys what's happening in the world right now, okay? So it is what it is. Am I so little? Whatever. Doc.
Harris, a reasonable facsimile. President Trump arriving for the G7 summit in France with the wind at his back after landing a deal with Iran to end the war that has snarled a crucial waterway and spiked global energy prices. It comes after months of talks, public blowups, escalating tensions, and a last-minute Israeli strike on Beirut. I'm John Roberts, in for Harris Faulkner today, and you are in the Faulkner Focus. The president's trip to Europe followed news of the U.S. and Iran finalizing a memorandum of understanding. The deal is expected to halt the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and extend the U.S.-Iran ceasefire for 60 days for talks on Iran ending its nuclear program. Exact details of the deal, not public yet, and likely won't be until closer to a signing ceremony Friday in Switzerland. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance.
What this deal does fundamentally is two things. It immediately reopens the Straits of Hormuz. We're already seeing in the past 24 hours more traffic flow. You see oil prices coming down, but you also have the long-term commitment that Iran will never develop or procure a nuclear weapon. Those are two very big wins for the American people. Fundamentally, we have the leverage. We have the diplomatic, economic, and military leverage, but we also are extending an open hand to the Iranians and saying, if you guys negotiate in good faith and you make that long-term commitment not to develop nuclear weapons, then we are going to make sure that your country is successful.
President Trump also praising the agreement in a post online, writing, quote, the leaders of the region have, for the first time, found a president who can help them achieve real peace with the opening of the strait upon the signing of the deal on Friday. For purposes of mine removal, oil will flow on both ends again for the region and the world. Victoria Coates is the former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump during his first administration. She will join me in just moments, but first to our senior White House correspondent, Peter Doocy, who's live on the shores of Lake Geneva and kicks off our coverage from Evian-les-Bains. Peter.
And John, good morning. A small group from the Iranian regime is coming here to Switzerland to shake hands, rather to meet with either Vice President Vance or President Trump, who is just across the river, just across the border in France, to shake hands and let the world know that this war is over.
Well, we already signed the deal digitally yesterday, and there's been no money released, and that won't change, George. Again, this is a performance-based thing. If we see the Iranians making, for example, taking action to eliminate their stockpile of enriched material, then yes, sanctions relief will follow. If we see the Iranians taking action to allow the kind of verification regime that we need to see to know that they're not going to build a nuclear weapon, yes, sanctions relief will follow.
President Trump says ships are starting to move, many loaded up with oil, out of the Strait of Hormuz. They are going along the southern highway, which is totally safe, secure, and pristine. There are other areas of travel also. Democrats, though, just want to make sure that this agreement is better than the one Barack Obama signed with Iran a decade ago.
The point the president just made, that they've agreed not to develop a nuclear weapon, they did that with President Obama's JCPOA. That was an agreement they held to of not developing nuclear weapons. So we have spent billions of dollars. We've lost 14 personnel killed in action, hundreds wounded, and we've disrupted the world economy. And we're getting basically less than what we had under the JCPOA, which President Trump walked away from.
Mm-hmm. Within the next couple of days, we expect the Iranian regime to try to claim some kind of a victory in these negotiations, too. That could be sanctions relief. That could be accounts getting unfrozen. We just don't know exactly what they have been, what they have signed on to. And we don't know what the holdup is because they have already signed on to it. John.
All right. Well, we'll see what the days ahead bring. Peter Doocy kicking us off live on the shores of Lake Geneva. Thank you so much, Peter. Let's bring in Victoria Coates, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, also Vice President of the National Security at the Heritage Foundation. And according to President Trump, you're absolutely fantastic, and you get it like few other people do. So we're glad to have you on today.
Well, thank you very much, John.
So the president is heading into the Hotel Royale in Evian to be before a group of leaders who basically told him to pound sand when he went into Iran. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, I would think, for those leaders now that the president has got this memorandum of understanding, it looks like, in the bag.
No, it is. And this is going to be the first of two, I think, quite fraught engagement with the European partners over the course of the next couple of weeks. We have the G7 this week, and then we will have the NATO summit, which will also have, I think, some fairly difficult conversations. These are conversations between friends, and we want the transatlantic relationship to be strong. But there's no getting around the fact that a lot of these economies that the president will be meeting with in Evian were not helpful during the Iran engagement.
They ran away.
They ran away, and they could have stayed quiet. They missed an opportunity to just say nothing, which is always an option. And they instead came out and condemned it in the case of Spain, even the United Kingdom, and proved themselves incapable of mounting any military assistance. The UK could not get a single destroyer into the Mediterranean to defend their own assets on Cyprus for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
This is the British Navy we're talking about, John. It's pitiful.
Yeah, I remember a time, and it was a long time ago, that the British Navy was the most powerful naval force in the world. No more. So President Trump said that the oil will start moving right away. It looks like that's not going to happen until Friday. But here's what Kepler Intelligence and Tracking Company says. It estimates that about 500 large commercial vessels are currently in the Gulf. In a statement, the company is saying, quote, "Our latest estimate is that a return to normal shipping patterns would likely take months rather than weeks. Even if the strait is considered reopened, this does not automatically mean traffic will normalize immediately. Vessels that have been delayed or held back would need time to exit, complete voyages, and potentially return for new loadings. That process could roughly take 2 to 3 months." So it's not just the
Thank you, Andrew Potato. I appreciate you.
Persian Gulf during this conflict for the last almost 3 months. But it's also the fact that these ships probably would have gone to their home ports, returned, filled up again, and gone back. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball here a little bit.
A little bit, but I think, you know, Kepler is by its nature, and this is its business, which I wouldn't presume to tell them how to do it, but they are an extremely conservative organization, and they don't want to set wrong expectations. One thing we will have though, is we're going to continue to have the exploitation of the pipelines, especially Saudi Petroline, which was providentially installed by the Saudis in the 1980s, and that can continue to pump those 7 million barrels a day. And we have the increased U.S. capacity to export natural gas through Golden Pass in Texas, another huge thing that came online right in the middle of the war, and the reason we haven't seen any escalation in natural gas prices. So I think those things will continue to mitigate even as we move through the backlog that Kepler identified.
Yeah, even China's increased its import of U.S. oil. Do you think that we actually make it to a signing on Friday, or do you think hardliners in Iran will try to derail this process?
Oh, of course they will. And it's Iran. So I think we're in for a sporty couple of days, but I have all confidence in President Trump. And, you know, with all due respect to Senator Jack Reed, I was serving in the Senate when the JCPOA was implemented, and nobody signed anything. The first thing that's different about this deal is that the president is setting up a signing ceremony, potentially to include himself as head of state.
Yeah, it's right across the lake.
Right. Barack Obama never did anything like that. Nobody signed anything. And it was implemented by the United Nations Security Council, and they never even tried to get it passed through the Senate as a treaty. So everything is completely different in this deal. We'll wait till we see the details, but that, to my mind, is the first indicator that this is a much more serious agreement.
I mean, he might wrap up the G7, you know, take the helicopter across the lake and sit down with the Iranians.
Take the pretty ride.
Wouldn't it? Yeah. So the one thing that people here in America are looking forward to is some relief from high gas prices. I bought it in the northern part of Maryland for $3.69 at Arroyo Farms yesterday, which was pretty good. But oil crude prices are falling to below $80 a barrel this morning. Last time we saw crude oil prices around 80 was back in March. As all of this was just getting underway. International benchmark Brent crude also falling below $84 a barrel. This development comes as gas prices continue to trickle lower, sitting around $4.07 nationally for a gallon of regular. That's down from $4.53 a month ago. If the Strait of Hormuz is open and these tankers begin to transit just like nothing ever happened, how long do you think it'll be before we get down below $3?
Well, again, I don't have a crystal ball. So predicting gas prices is probably not my strong suit. I will say, though, you know, I can feel it too. When I filled up over last weekend, it was lower than it had been. And, you know, we're going into one of the biggest weeks in our nation's history, our 250th anniversary at Heritage. We're so excited about this, doing a great deal of preparation for it. And I think it's going to be wonderful to have this successful military engagement brought to a conclusion that keeps the American people safer and then hopefully drops from the headlines. The United States should be focused on all the great and good things that are happening here in our country, starting with lower gas prices so everybody can drive more over that long 4th of July weekend. We'll have airline ticket prices coming down. This should be a time of just enormous celebration at the incredible things we've achieved as a country, and I think President Trump will lead in that.
Well, I think there's probably a little more space to do that as long as we get to Friday. Vic, always great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube.
Hey, Detour, good to see you. Oh, you guys, the chat's rough tonight. Are you guys okay? Huh. Where was I going? I think. Oh, here we go.
War has cost billions. So let's take the conversation to what's happening today. President Donald Trump declared the Strait of Hormuz open immediately, but Iran says the strait is closed. Speaking at the G7 summit today, President Trump said the agreement has been signed by both sides, electronically at least. He also said this about when the terms will be made public.
I think pretty soon. I would say, I mean, I want it to be released because it's a very powerful document. It's not like the Obama document, which was just a terrible document. This is a very powerful document, and I want it to be released. So probably pretty soon. I would say sometime after Friday.
Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard released a list of terms it says are in the agreement. They include an end to all hostilities, including Israel's battle with Hezbollah in Lebanon, the release of $24 billion in frozen Iranian funds, 60 days to reach an agreement on nuclear issues, and a full lifting of the U.S. naval blockade of Iran's ports. So a lot to unpack here. Before that, we're joined by CBS News national security contributor Aaron McLean. So Aaron, so many questions, but first I want to ask about the Strait. Mr. Trump says it's open. Iran says not yet. So what's the delay and what's the disparity here?
Well, certainly any statement from the Iranians that it's not open and just confusion in general is going to do a lot to restrict traffic through the Strait. So it's one more delay in getting that traffic going, which is important to the global economy. But I just want to point out something that is really extraordinary, and we shouldn't let it pass us by so casually. Is that the text of this deal is at this moment secret and yet in effect. So this document between the United States and Iran has been signed. The administration has frequently been frustrated in recent days by the Iranians characterizing elements of the document in ways that they, the administration, say are misleading, and yet they won't release the text. If they release the text, we would be able to see in black and white, for example, what exactly the timing is on when the Strait is supposed to be opened, amongst many other details, but we can't. So we don't know. And for me, this is the enormous question of the day, is why won't they release it?
Why won't they release it? And why, when the president's asked about it with the French president sitting right there, he just says the word soon. A lot of people are saying in that agreement is the 60-day window basically extended to continue nailing down the particulars of a nuclear agreement. What do you know there?
Right. So from everything we've heard and from where reports from Iranian media and comments made by this administration seem to cohere with one another, is that this is not so much a peace deal as it is a 60-day extension of the current ceasefire. And in those 60 days, the United States and Iran are going to negotiate further details about, in particular, Iran's nuclear program. What we think has been agreed to up front, though, as your first question indicated, there's still some confusion over the timing and other details, is a mutual ending of blockades. We will end our blockade of Iranian ports. Iran will end its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. But even there, the timing, as you pointed out, but other very important questions like, will Iran assert sovereignty in the Strait and claim that it's going to administer that Strait going forward? We don't actually know what's been agreed to or what they've been agreed to. We just know that the deal is signed and that those details haven't been released.
And the signatories of the deal, the U.S. and Iran, Israel not a part of the signing of this deal. And we know that the Iranian proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon still is something that is an important part of the deal, at least from the Iranian perspective. How could any flare-up between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon cause this deal to go up in smoke by Friday?
So the Iranians have repeatedly claimed, and the American response has been somewhat ambiguous, that the text of this MOU requires the cessation of, quote unquote, all hostilities. And in their mind, all hostilities includes Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, the problem, as you just pointed out, is that Israel's not signing this deal. The United States is signing this deal. Israel has not been part of these negotiations. So the United States does not have the power to simply impose a ceasefire on Israel with regard to its conflict with Hezbollah. Indeed, the Israelis have basically explicitly rejected in the last 1 to 2 days the notion that they are going to withdraw from Lebanon as a consequence of this deal. So again, it's one more sort of topsy-turvy dimension to all of this. What exactly have we agreed to? Have we agreed to restrain the Israelis in Lebanon? And how do we feel about the fact that the Israelis have explicitly rejected that notion? It's totally unclear.
Say there's no change between now and Friday and this deal gets buttoned up in the way at least it sounds like the terms are going to get buttoned up. Let's talk about legacy here, the president's legacy. Will history say that this was worth the loss of 13 American lives, the spend of hundreds of billions of dollars on this war?
Well, that remains to be seen about what the contents of this deal are. If I were a betting man, I would say that, just to speculate a little bit here, that if the administration believed it was in its interest to have the text public, the text would be public. But the text isn't public. So we have to wonder what terms buried in those details there are disadvantageous to the administration. If Iran, for example, ends up with some sort of assertion of sovereignty or administrative control, let alone charging fees, which is just another word for tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, that's an objective strategic defeat for the United States in that arena. What will the disposition of Iran's nuclear program be? If, in fact, it's ended for good, well, that's a major accomplishment. But we don't know that yet. And by the way, the question of Iran's missile program and its support for terror proxies no longer appears to be part of this deal. So it's an open question until we know what's in the deal, and indeed till we know what's at the end of the 60-day final period of negotiations. But I would say right now the Iranians are driving a pretty hard bargain.
All right, Aaron McLean, thank you so much for your insights today. As always appreciate talking to you. Thank you. So on the heels of this reported Iran agreement, President Trump is in France for this year's G7 summit, meeting of many leaders that are part of those G7 nations. He held a meeting, in fact, with French President Emmanuel Macron, just one European leader who's been pretty critical of Mr. Trump's handling of the war with Iran. So covering this for us from the White House, CBS News political reporter Torian Small. Torian, what are your takeaways when you listen to the president talk to his French counterpart there?
Yeah, well, going into this, it was clear that this Iran agreement was going to be the top line that the president wanted those world leaders to take away from their meeting with him. Even though this is essentially an agreement to an agreement, he's pretty much laying out the foundation that he said a lot of the footwork for these foreign nations and is hoping to, get some type of appraisal or praise from them for the efforts that he's made. I think it was notable to hear the French President Macron come out and say that it's willing, or his nation is willing to do its fair share to help button up this deal, especially as these European nations were hurt greatly by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. As it relates to this energy crisis, the president made it clear that their central focus right now over the next couple of days is the full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. And he said, that's top line there, but as it relates to the rest of the war and those proxy wars in the region, that's still something that's tough and will have to be hammered out during that 60-day window. This is a little bit of what he said during that bilateral meeting.
But I think it's going to be open, and I think it's going to be free sailing. We do want to see if we can straighten out the Lebanon thing, because it just seems to just never end. And that's a mini version of what we were doing, and it should not be tough. It should not be tough. So Hezbollah, we have to have a little talk with them.
Looking ahead, he also mentioned the war in Ukraine with Russia. He said he had a conversation with both Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky recently, said that went well, and they're continuing with their talks to ending that conflict. Macron also confirmed that Zelensky would be a part of this G7 summit.
Got to ask you about the vice president. J.D. Vance was asked on CBS Mornings about the monitoring of Iran's nuclear program and how that would evolve and what that would involve. What did he have to say?
Well, Reed, I would imagine that that's still a work in progress, because he was quite vague in his answers to our Ed O'Keefe. He talked about this mechanism that would see a marriage between the IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the United States, but didn't necessarily go into details of what that would look like. Take a listen to what he had to say.
It's going to be a combination, of course, of the United States monitoring and enforcing this thing, but also the IAEA, the organization that sort of has the expertise to ensure that that enriched stockpile is destroyed and that Iran over the long haul doesn't try to
might not
rebuild
be
it.
involved in this? Will U.S. ground troops go in to make sure that we have everything?
Well, look, Ed, we certainly talked with the Iranians about how we're going to destroy that enriched stockpile. The technical details are one of the things that we're going to work on when we start those technical talks on Friday. But absolutely, we're talking about working with the IAEA and working with the Iranians to go in and destroy that enriched stockpile of material. Whether we play an observer role or whether we play a more active role, these are the sorts of things that we'll figure out in technical talks. But what the president has made very clear is the United States will be there to confirm that that enriched stockpile of material is destroyed.
I have to point out the stark parallel between the JCPOA, that Iran nuclear deal negotiated by President Obama, that had the IAEA as the central governing body or agency tasked with inspections. But the difference here, according to the vice president, is that this is an entirely different situation. He says under the Obama administration, that monitoring system would essentially be in place to ensure that it's constrained, the nuclear program under Iran. He says under these circumstances, it's been completely demolished. So the fact-finding mission here would be to ensure that they're not restocking or rebuilding, instead of just not going beyond what they already had. One other question, lingering question, that I think is on the minds of many as we wait for the release of the deal is whether or not the release or unfreezing of assets, billions in assets for Iran, would happen before or after the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. He says, the vice president says that this would happen once they agree or deal with or make good on their part of the deal, but he doesn't say whether or not that's just for the Strait or if that is some assurances that their nuclear program wouldn't be re-upped. That's when they would get those assets. So something that we're keeping a close eye on, Reed.
All right, Torian Small at the White House. Thank you for that. Good to see you.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
The Israeli army and the state of Israel set out to thwart existential threats to Israel and great threats to America and the entire world.
It was the second time in less than a year that Israel and the U.S. had attacked Iran.
This combined force of more than 400 fighter jets, 2 aircraft carriers, all these destroyers, refueling capability. They'd never seen anything like this before.
Explosions rocked multiple cities. The Pentagon saying U.S. airstrikes have destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones.
Within 24 hours, Iran's supreme leader and other top officials had been killed.
His removal obviously creates a massive power vacuum.
Earth-shattering moment for the Middle East.
As the conflict spreads,
we're seeing the Middle East absorb a wave of Iranian retaliation.
There is now a second front that has opened up in Lebanon.
an updated presentation of the long road to war.
We're ready to roll.
Drawing on interviews with officials, insiders, and experts on all sides.
This film's going to cover.
Y'all thought we were gonna watch that tonight? No. No. Interesting, but no, we're not watching that. I lost it. Hold on. Oh, here it is. Doc, no. I just made it back. I can't. You gotta give me some time. Hey, Damage. I missed you.
Driver accused of hitting an ICE agent with a car and then fleeing the scene happened earlier today in New Jersey. Police saying the officer was trying to arrest the suspect. Alexis McAdams reporting live on that story here in New York City. What have we learned, Alexis, so far?
Hey, Bill. Well, still an active manhunt this afternoon, and the feds are working to track down the driver who hit an ICE agent with their van and just took off down the road. So it happened around 9:30 this morning in South Jersey. This was the scene then. It's now been cleared. The road is back open. ICE telling Fox the agents were conducting a targeted traffic stop, so they knew exactly who they were looking for. But when they went to stop the person, the driver wouldn't pull over on the side of the road. So authorities say just sped off and hit one ICE agent with his van. That agent opened fire, and according to local police dispatch, at least one of those bullets hit the van. Listen.
Incident occurred at 9:28 at 1400 Route 72. Back window was shot at by the officer. Last seen heading eastbound Route 72.
The search continues. The ICE agent who was hit is expected to be okay, according to ICE. And the local police in Stafford Township say we were not involved in the operation, pointing that out because a lot of people in New Jersey don't want ICE cooperation on the ground. The department's following New Jersey's strict, and I mean strict, anti-ICE laws set under Democratic Governor Mikey Sherrill, and they're among the toughest in the country. They ban local police from working in any capacity with ICE. It's a move the White House says, okay, if you want to do that, it just makes agents' jobs more difficult and more dangerous. And it comes after weeks of anti-ICE protests like this, those clashes we watched live outside of Delaney Hall Detention Facility. New Jersey Democrats were out there in that mess, demanding the facility shut down. So the investigation continues again this afternoon. DHS tells Fox the assaults on ICE agents just keep climbing, Bill.
Okay, so this was not Delaney Hall, which is where the action has been, correct?
No, it wasn't. It was like an hour or so away, but just in general, a lot of anti-ICE rhetoric going on in New Jersey.
Okay, thanks, Alexis. Nice to see you here
too.
in New York.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows
Doc,
streaming
yeah,
now on Fox
Doc,
One.
I'm sorry, Damage. I'm trying to find more on it. I'm trying to find more on that one, but yeah, I'm outraged.
Moments from now, the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche will join me here on Saturday in America, just days after the discovery of a cross-border tunnel used to smuggle deadly drugs into the United States. This video is astonishing, and you haven't seen it yet. Take a look at this. Homeland Security busting this sophisticated underground tunnel that connected an area of Tijuana, Mexico, to a retail store in San Diego. It was hidden 55 feet underground and was longer than 5 football fields. Now, U.S. officials say it had reinforced walls, had electricity, ventilation, and get this, a rail system. Investigators were surveilling the retail store for months because of suspicious activity, and that led to the seizure of $45 million worth of cocaine and the eventual discovery of that tunnel.
I'm sorry,
now, 4
Doc.
people so far have been charged in
There you
connection
go.
with this
Don't have
elaborate
to speak for me. Thank
operation.
you.
And with that, let's bring in Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Attorney General, this is astonishing when I saw it. I mean, hat tip to your team for finding it, to the FBI. How did you find this, and do you believe there are more of these?
Well, look, this was a 6-month investigation. It lasted a long time. And this is one of the new ways that the cartels, that these terrorists are trying to get drugs into this country. As you just said, this is a very sophisticated tunnel, about 4.5 feet to get all the way through. It had electricity, it had a rail system, and this is great work. Our Homeland Security Task Force team that's in California worked really hard on this investigation. We had 2 illegal aliens from Mexico and 2, unfortunately, two drug dealers from the United States as well. So, yeah, look, this has been something that they've been doing for a long time. And now that the borders are closed, they have to find other ways to get drugs in this country. And this was one way they were trying to do it.
It's astonishing. Cocaine flowing through that tunnel, probably fentanyl too, possibly, and into the homes of Americans, killing American citizens. Great work to the FBI and DOJ for finding that. Another story that deserves a ton of coverage, and this happened yesterday. There were 3 individuals in Kansas and California that you found, and they were providing material support to ISIS. And the details are quite something. One said it was sick if his name was on a drone that would kill American service members. Another person said they always wanted to kill a female soldier by beheading. I wish I could kill 300 million Americans. These are bad guys, and now they're indicted.
Yes, this is a very disturbing case. You have young men, they're in their 20s, completely indoctrinated by terrorism and by terrorists, and actually spending money to actually follow through on these attacks. Like you just said, one wanted their name written on a drone to kill Americans. One fantasized about killing a female soldier by beheading her. And look, another great example of hardworking FBI agents and our federal prosecutors in California and Kansas and working together. And I'm glad we were able to interject here and stop these men. But it's a good reminder to the Americans that this fight is not over. There are still a lot of people that want to inject harm into this country and their citizens.
No doubt about it. And bringing it domestically, we talked about our service members there for a little bit, but focusing on fraud, we saw you and a whole of government approach this week tackling fraud. And I've heard from our viewers constantly, we want to rest. And you brought that once again this week, a 32-count indictment, 2 of which were state employees. This is the most wanted fraudsters you have. I was stunned, Mr. Attorney General, that there is a man on there that's accused of stealing $1.2 billion with the B of taxpayer dollars. These people, you think you're going to find them?
Well, yes, and that's one of the reasons why we're publishing this list, is because that it works for the most wanted. Director Patel talks about how in just 1 year we've gotten 8 of the 10 most wanted criminals, and that's why we wanted to start this list. You have President Trump, President Vance telling the American people we are going to stop this fraud and this thieves that just people stealing money from the taxpayers. And we announced a bunch of charges in Ohio this week. And just remember, when we're arresting these guys, we're taking cars, luxury cars. We got Range Rovers, Maseratis, a McLaren this week. And so these are individuals who are just stealing from us and then going out and living in the lap of and so we're going to all of it.
I'm asked often. I asked the vice president about or with these two state employees. What did you find them?
Yes, that's right. I mean, look, in some states, they're making it almost too easy for fraudsters to do what they're doing. And you do have state employees who are aware of how easy it is in some states to steal from the American taxpayer. And so, yes, there were 2 state employees arrested. We have dozens of investigations going on all over this country, and you're going to see more and more arrests as the weeks and months go on, because this is something that became a real crisis that we are now addressing with the full weight of the federal government, not just the Department of Justice, but DHS and HHS and Department of Education and Small Business Association. Everybody's working together to root out fraud, and that's why you're seeing the results that you're seeing.
Another item, and again, this was all this week, there was a U.S. Iranian citizen that was indicted. And this individual was living in a mansion and I believe giving information of some sort to assist the Iranian nuclear program. Are you going to be able to seize that mansion?
Look, I think, yes, there's forfeiture charges associated with the charges against him. And yes, he allegedly was just an old-fashioned spy. And it's disturbing. And again, but I want to make sure that we emphasize that this is the great work of the FBI. There's so much criticism about law enforcement these days. You have a phenomenal investigation. You have the U.S. Attorney's Office in California working hard with law enforcement. And we were able to arrest this guy for allegedly very, very serious crimes. And you're right, it's not just the arrest. It's also making sure we take the ill-gotten gains and any money that they've made off their illegal schemes. And that's a big priority of what we're doing as well.
No doubt. And it is the hard work of law enforcement. And we've been through many things, again, all this week, law enforcement doing their job, but also Operation Spring Cleaning, which you announced. And this is to protect American citizens in their cities. In addition to that, and in tandem with that, there was the Model Cities Initiative. A lot of people say, you know, what happened with the big, beautiful bill? Well, this is an example of that. $300 million, I believe, going to cities that are serious about reducing crime. Tell me about these crime initiatives with Operation Spring Cleaning and the Model Cities Initiative.
Yeah, this is a great initiative the FBI does several times a year to go into cities and just put a lot of agents and a lot of law enforcement in a city to arrest people who are either wanted for crimes already or to actually build cases and arrest them federally or even sometimes take the charges to the state. What we've done with the Model Cities Initiative is we are saying to cities, if you're serious about reducing crime, if you're serious about partnering with the federal government to make your city safe, we are going to back it up and we're going to give you money to help you do it. And so we the Big Beautiful Bill gave a lot of money for state and local law enforcement. And what we're going to do with President Trump's encouragement and direction is spend that money wisely. So we're going to spend that money in cities that are willing to join us in this fight against crime. And we're looking forward to results. We've seen results in Memphis, in DC, all over the country. And that's what the Model City Initiative is designed to do.
And we've had little Braylon on. He's a sweet little boy in Memphis who was thanking the Trump administration because now he's allowed to go out on his porch and play his musical instruments. So there are real people affected by this. That was all in a week's time, but there was also some personnel news this week. And I do want to end with that. The president announced that he wants you to be the permanent attorney general. And last night, Susie Wiles said congratulations to Todd Blanche on his nomination by President Trump to become the next attorney general. That's a lot of priorities we went through just from this week. What's your priority going to be as Attorney General?
Look, executing on the president's priorities that he has talked about since he was running for president, and that's making this country safe again. And so we're doing that every day at the Department of Justice. And so, look, I'm honored and humbled that President Trump has asked me to become the permanent attorney general. I look forward to working with the Senate over the next couple of weeks and months to get that done. And it's not only an honor, but it's a big responsibility. But we have a lot of men and women all over this country working hard every day to execute on the president's priorities of cleaning up our cities, narco-terrorism, getting them out, and making sure that we stop the scourge of drugs and the fraud that's happening. That's the job, and that's what we've been doing, and that's what we're going to keep on doing, and that's what the American people expect.
No doubt. Well, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
No. There was I saw that documentary too. I've been watching a lot of PBS, even though they're left leaning, but I don't know. And I believe he's got a kind spirit, but you can tell he's young. Yeah, I know what you mean. Hey, caveman, what about them Knicks? All right, you guys, I got to get through this so I can talk to you guys later. Maybe. Tell me what you think about this. Now, he's not America's favorite, but people like him. Oh, Elon Musk has been in the news. We missed a lot. I missed a lot with you, so I'm just trying to catch you up before I go to bed. If you guys want me to cover something before I go, let me know. I forgot to hit start. There you go.
Vivek Ramaswamy running for Ohio governor.
Oh, no.
Mr. Vivek. People here are trillionaire. They're like, oh my God, this is getting ridiculous. What do you tell those people?
What I tell those people is we're at a fork in the road for the future of the country in our attitude towards success. Do we believe that success is something that we celebrate, which I believe is the American way?
I said you may not like it.
Success is something that we ought to villainize.
Yes.
And my message, Jesse, to all the young people who are falling in love with socialism is that someone else's success does not take away from your ability to achieve your goals. Actually, when someone else succeeds, it makes you more likely to succeed as well. Just think about this story. Think about the story of America. We're in the 250th anniversary of the birth of our country. What made America great? It was in part our system of free enterprise, and it was the fact that we as a country are a magnet for the best and brightest around the world. Think of the story of Elon Musk, a kid born in South Africa, eventually finding his way to the United States to pursue the American dream, now the most successful entrepreneur in history. That isn't just a story about Elon Musk. It is a story about America. And you think about that American dream, we call it the American dream for a reason, because there is no Canadian dream, there is no British dream, there's no Chinese dream. It is that American dream that makes American exceptionalism possible. And if you, I'm maybe getting passionate about it because it's very personal to me, Jesse. I've lived that American dream. And I think that's what makes our country the greatest country known to the history of mankind. The question for us going forward is, are we willing to defend it? Are we willing to double down on it rather than wearing the mantle of victimhood? Are we willing to reject the siren song of zero-sum economics, which is a fallacy, as opposed to embracing success, which is what this country was all about? That's what this story is really about at its core, and I think we ought to double down on what made America great.
Well, I agree, but some of the politicians on the other side, it's very appetizing to take that wealth. They want to say, $1 trillion, we're going to get some of it, we're going to give it to you, and they can run on that, and sometimes they can win on that. Well, what's the message to them?
Well, the message to them is that's a form of exploitation. At the end of the day, when you sort of give away government benefits without work requirements attached to it, it shrinks the size of the pie. And I don't want to see us become a nation that's fighting over the scraps of a shrinking pie. We want to grow the pie. At the end of the day, capitalism is the best system known to the history of man to lift people up from poverty. When they tore down the Berlin Wall, which way did people go? I'm sorry, Jesse, they weren't running east to the Soviet Union. They were moving west. And I think America is the embodiment of that human potential, embodiment of meritocracy. The idea that no matter who you are or where your parents came from or what your skin color is or even country you were born in, if you come here the right way, you can achieve the maximum of your own God-given potential without any man or system or bureaucracy standing in your way. That's our national identity. It is the heart of American greatness. And if we reject that, Jesse, we're just like every other nation, ordinary nation in human history. I reject that. This is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. It's also the 250th anniversary of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. Don't forget about that. So you think about the greatness of America. It's capitalism. It's the rule of law. It's the fact that we're a magnet for the best around the world. That is what got us here. And certainly you have the left-wing socialists They're becoming more and more popular. They're winning primary elections. You're seeing it even this season. I have no hope for the Democrat Party. They're going nowhere. But what I want to see is a Republican Party that once again embraces this idea of celebrating success rather than villainizing it. That's who we are. And I think it's on our shoulders to lead our country back to light, back to success, back to economic expansion. That's what we're going to do.
All right. Well said. Vivek, great to see you. Thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Welcome back, and I'm back with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this morning. And Mr. Secretary, one top.
Okay, let me go to one of Claude's people here. You guys still good? I look sleepy. It's long story. Long story. All right, you guys. Let's go to New York. I don't know. Speaking of ICE, well, let's check out Mamdani.
The Mayor Zoran Mamdani is ramping up his radical rhetoric after border czar Tom Homan
New York
suggested deploying more ICE agents.
These kinds of threats, as you've said, from Tom Homan and the federal administration, they're not new, and neither will our response be. We continue to be proud of being a sanctuary city. We continue to be ready to stand up for our immigrant neighbors, and we continue to be ready to use every single tool at our disposal. And I've said to the president directly that I believe that ICE raids are cruel and they do nothing to serve in the interests of public safety. And I do believe it's a rogue agency that should be abolished, because we need an approach to immigration in this country that has more humanity at the heart of it.
Former acting ICE director and DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary Jonathan Fahey joins me now. Jonathan, thank you for joining us this morning. You know, we've heard the mayor say things like this before. He's doubling down once again. So let's live in a world for a moment where he gets his wish and ICE is abolished in cities and states across the country. What would that actually look like in practice? Would we live in a more humane society as the way the mayor is predicting?
We would live in a society that is significantly less safe. Places like New York would be utterly bankrupt because, remember, under the Biden administration with the open borders policies that only were 4 years, New York City was going broke. Mayor Adams was asking for $12 billion from the federal government to pay for all the services that illegal aliens were costing the city. And that was just on a short period of time. So if you actually got rid of ICE, we would see murder skyrocket. We'd see crime skyrocket. We would all be poorer, less safe, and it would be a devastating effect, because you cannot have ICE and the border go hand in hand. If you stop enforcing internal immigration laws, the border will be overrun again, because part of the deterrence is the fact that people, once they get in here, aren't getting to stay anymore, which we didn't have under sort of the open border Biden policy. So it's a complete joke, because he says this under the umbrella of protection that Donald Trump is providing New York by shutting the border and deporting the bad guys. And remember, since Trump took office, crime in New York has dropped dramatically, and a lot of it is because he's getting rid of the bad guys that were allowed to stay during the previous administration. It's a total joke under Mamdani's side. He knows it is, but it's completely self-serving today for him and today's Democratic Party.
You know, Jonathan, I think that some of the things Mayor Mamdani said in that little soundbite we played bear repeating. One of them is we continue to be ready to stand up for our immigrant neighbors. He also said, I believe that ICE raids are cruel and they do nothing to serve the interest of public safety. I wonder what he would say to the parents of Sheridan Gorman in his desire to not turn over illegal immigrants to federal law enforcement when their daughter was allegedly killed by an illegal immigrant with a criminal record. Maybe there's nothing you can say to a family like that. And that's the point. That's part of the story. When you talk about cruel and inhumane, don't those families matter?
Right, exactly. And our politicians here are supposed to be representing American citizens, not illegal aliens. And you go back, you have Sheridan Gorman in Chicago, but you also have Laken Riley in Georgia. And remember, her killer was arrested in New York City, released under their sanctuary policies, albeit the DHS under Mayorkas wasn't even trying to arrest him. But it just shows there's the cruelty, and your responsibility as a mayor, as an elected official in America is to defend American citizens. And there's such an indifference. It's cruelty and just indifference to American suffering, because you see it every day. And when Donald Trump is trying to enforce the immigration laws, he's making us safer, and the Democrats stand in the way every step of the way when he's simply trying to enforce the laws passed by Congress.
This back and forth isn't going anywhere. It continues into today. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Oh, it was a massive TikTok moment that's over. The American life of luxury over. Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement has arrested the niece and grandniece of an Iranian general the U.S. just killed during President Trump's first term. ICE busted them shortly after the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, revoked their green cards. The pair had posted praise for Iran's regime and celebrations of attacks on the U.S. At the same time, they were living a very high lifestyle in L.A. Senior foreign policy correspondent Jillian Turner has more from the State Department. Jillian.
Good morning to you, Harris. These relatives of Qasem Soleimani did more than just praise Iran's regime and enemy of the United States on social media. These women publicly supported the IRGC, that's Iran's military, that's designated a foreign terrorist organization here in the United States. The Trump administration says that amounts to material support in this case. So take a look at these women. The niece and the grandniece of Qasem Soleimani, they are in ICE custody now, pending removal from the U.S. The Secretary of State says the move came after he terminated their legal status in the country last week, posting on X. Until recently, Hamideh Soleimani Afshar and her daughter were green card holders living lavishly in the U.S. She celebrated attacks on Americans and referred to our country as the, quote, Great Satan. President Trump often touts the operation he had authorized in his first term to take out Qasem Soleimani, a notorious killer responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of people. He counts it among his greatest counterterrorism achievements to this very day. Take a listen to the president a moment ago.
We killed Soleimani. Without Soleimani, if they had Soleimani, it would be a whole different thing. Maybe. We'd still be winning, but it would have been harder because we are obliterating that country.
Well, Soleimani's niece entered the U.S. on a tourist visa in 2015, eventually secured asylum, then obtained a green card. Despite frequent trips home back to Iran, she sought relentlessly during her time here to become an influencer on social media. Her daughter came to the U.S. that same year on a student visa and essentially never left. She, too, spent much of her time promoting herself and her American lifestyle on social media platforms. Harris, the hypocrisy here, I mean, barely warrants a mention. It is self-evident. If these women were back home living under the rule of the regime they say they love, they would not be allowed to post on social media. They would not be allowed to go out in public alone or even take selfies. They would not be allowed to attend college or school. They would be living under Sharia law. It would be a very different situation. Harris?
Jillian Turner, thank you very much. Former Department of Homeland Security advisor and former Secret Service agent Charles Marino is with me now. Charles, a lot of people have been asking, how in the world did they stay here? That nobody ever said anything after, their relative being annihilated in Trump's first term. We know that he was an enemy. The military took him out.
Well, it's the right question to be asking right now, especially since it appears that as a country, we still haven't learned the lessons of September 11th, 2001, where shortly after those attacks, the Saudi government requested that the FBI assist in relocating over 24 members of the bin Laden family. after that attack. We knew he was leading al-Qaeda. We knew he was an adversary of the United States, and yet we had 24 of his family members here in the United States. And this is the same situation. I think the American people would be shocked to learn how many people we have allowed into the country, either through claims of asylum or on student visas or tourist visas, that are associated with adversarial countries, including the leaders of those countries. This needs to stop. We have got to understand that countries like China, for example, who continue to exploit American universities for the theft of intellectual property and destruction of scientific data, etc., continue to flood and exploit the immigration policies of the United States. And I don't think the American people should have to learn another tough lesson through another act of terrorism to understand that our policies are backwards right now. And some of our elected leaders continue to bury their heads in the sand and live in this augmented reality that just doesn't match what's going on the ground.
Look, having worked at DHS as an advisor, I mean, you know the details of what it can cost us, not just with 9/11, but just overall. It sows the seeds with other enemies. Like, well, maybe we can go to America after hating them and threatening to kill Americans and become an influencer. A new editorial with this headline: California should thank ICE for arresting Iranian terror generals' high-living relatives. And here's part of that. It is unusual for the families of America's sworn enemies to support the bad guys so openly while enjoying the California sunshine. Soleimani's relatives must have thought they were immune. After all, they lived in a sanctuary state. But as Rubio noted, Secretary of State, a green card is a privilege, not a right. And you cannot support America's enemies and expect to stay in the country. Charles.
Well, and I don't think the administration is holding their breath, waiting for a big thank you from Gavin Newsom, just like they wouldn't get one from Tim Walz or Governor Hochul in New York City. These sanctuary jurisdictions are actually more likely to take the side of those that have been deported, no matter their association or the reason why they were here in the country. So, look, we are one of the most lax countries in the world when it comes to our border and immigration policies. And we saw that to an extreme under the Biden administration. And now the Trump administration has a great deal of catching up to do through Marco Rubio at the State Department in terms of vetting. Vetting that wasn't done.
Charles, I need to pull away. Please forgive me.
Was done.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
That was crazy. I don't know.
So happening today, President Trump is set to hold a press conference with top military officials on Iran amid emerging reports that a deal to end the conflict and reopen key shipping routes could be done as soon as today.
This comes as we learn brand new details on the commander-in-chief's busy Easter weekend after he personally ordered a historic rescue for 2 U.S. airmen that were trapped in Iran after their jet went down. That involved over one.
I saw that. Hang on, you guys. Oh, wait. Okay, here we go.
President Macron said that French forces are, quote, ready to take action to secure the Strait of Hormuz and clear mines. We'll also be watching to see how other European and world leaders react after several already signaled support for the deal between the U.S. and Iran. Now, the deal calls for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which should happen Friday after the deal is officially signed. It also extends the ceasefire and will kick off a 60-day window to negotiate further terms regarding Iran's nuclear program. Vice President Vance says that the deal marks a new beginning in U.S. Middle East relations.
What the president really wanted to do, not just with the last 6 weeks, but really the last year and a half of Iran policy, is to get us to a place where we could change our relationship fundamentally with the Iranians and ensure that they never have a nuclear weapon. We feel that we're at that place now. We're, of course, going to continue to verify that, continue to negotiate and talk to the Iranians. But this is a big day for the American people, a big win for everybody who cares about basic peace and stability in the Middle East.
All right, Guy Benson, you were hosting last night while this broke. Talk to us about your thoughts about that and what we can expect from the G7.
And we actually had Vice President Vance call into the show as this was all breaking. And the vice president told us that there are sort of 3 buckets to watch here. Number 1 is the strait reopening, hopefully, basically immediately, and the blockade being lifted, which is an advantage that the Iranians have wanted. They're getting strangled economically. The third one, and I'm going to come back to number 2, was this conditional sanctions relief for Iran, the regime getting nothing unless they are following through on other promises, right? So that would be a verification question. The second one to me is the whole ballgame about whether or not this is a good deal, a mediocre deal, or a bad deal. And we don't have the details on that yet. It's the nuclear question. If this agreement ultimately within the next 60 days, whatever the exact time period is, if indeed Iran gives up that nuclear dust, as the president likes to call it, the highly enriched uranium removed from the country, and their program is dismantled, which has been not just the goal, but the expectation here, that would be an enormous win. That has been the purpose of this entire military operation from the very beginning. But it's the Iranians. They lie, they cheat, they steal. The devil will be in those details. So I think a strong, definitive analysis of what we're calling this deal can't really happen yet until we have these further specifics on the nuclear component.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming.
What do you? Never mind. Democrats can't do anything right. Oh, damage. Okay. What did I just show you guys right now? Oh, here we go. We are almost there. You guys still good? I almost got you to 3 hours like I usually do. So we are winding down.
1:20 past the hour now. The president announcing the U.S. launched a lethal kinetic strike against Tren de Aragua in Venezuela, eliminating one of that gang's top leader. The president describing the operation this way. This action was coordinated closely with our friends in Venezuela, with whom we are working very well. As a result, Tren de Aragua terrorists no longer have safe haven in Venezuela or anywhere else. And under my leadership, we will find these vicious murderers and drug lords anytime, any place, and send them to the depths of hell where they belong. James Gagliano, former FBI supervisory agent, Fox News contributor. James, good day to you and hello. Here is the Secretary of War yet again, CBS, just yesterday. Watch.
Should Americans understand that the U.S. will remain militarily involved in Venezuela? Should they expect similar operations in places like Ecuador and Guatemala, where the U.S. is working with their governments?
Yes, they should. It's called the America's Counter Cartel Coalition, ACCC, and we're forming it with partner governments all around Central and South America to go after, defeat, and destroy foreign terrorist organizations, drug cartels. And all those countries you named are stepping up to work on partnerships with the United States.
Okay, James, to me, it sounds like a new front. How do you see it, and where does it go?
Will build major geopolitical implications here. And look, you know, as Yogi Berra said, it's deja vu all over again. We've been doing this for a while in South America, Central America, and certainly in Mexico. However, not with this kind of level of unprecedented assistance from the government itself. So we know that Delcy Rodriguez replaced Nicolas Maduro after we took him off the map back in early part of this year. This is huge, a kinetic strike on a gang leader in his own country, Bill.
Okay. Would you expect more to be targeted, James?
Yeah. So look at this. Tren de Aragua was a nascent gang. It only began in the 2010s and I think established itself in 2014 in a notorious prison, the Torcarón prison in Venezuela. They haven't been around that long, but they've got tentacles into Chile, into Peru, into Colombia. And when we got that mass exodus, that migration in 2017, 2018 and after from Venezuela, many of these guys snuck themselves into the United States. And Bill, here's the clincher and the closer. The president is using the Alien Enemies Act to basically remove these folks and send them back to their country or to places like El Salvador. It's a brilliant two-pronged attack here. One is to take them off the battlefield via a kinetic strike. The second is removing and deporting the ones that are here.
Before I go to this next topic, are you firmly convinced that the current Venezuelan government is fully on board all this? Because there could be repercussions for them. Go ahead.
Certainly, Bill. I think that's a consideration there, too. And remember, we don't use law enforcement in Venezuela. We use their military. We cooperate with them. But I think they're in. I think they're more in than they're not.
Okay. Delaney Hall, New Jersey, is a place that ICE has been using for some time. You're well aware of it. We have found a lot of people who go there, frankly, take the train up from Philadelphia or other parts. Here's what the New York Post found. Influx of out-of-state agitators with links to dark money group among those arrested. All right, here we go. Out of at least 12 rioters arrested last weekend, 4 came from as far away as Washington State, Colorado, Arizona, Illinois to wreak havoc on the Garden State. James, I know you're not surprised by that, but I think a lot of viewers watching this would wonder what is going on there, because this is clearly organized at a much higher level.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. And I think first of all here, the Justice Department is handling this the right way. Go after the organizers. These are not spontaneous, populist-driven, opportunistic citizens showing up to protest. They're funded and they're organized. Treat them like we do kingpins in the drug world, or treat them as we do the mob with racketeering, influence, corrupt organizations laws. Go after the financiers, and that is exactly what the Justice Department is doing now,
Okay,
Bill.
I want to squeeze in this Secretary Mullen with Shannon on Fox News Sunday. Roll it and we'll listen.
I'm all for peaceful protesters. We're talking about rioters that are threatening. If you threaten our agents, if you harm our vehicles, if you harm our building, we're going to arrest you. We'll find you. If we don't get you right then, we will eventually get you. So zero tolerance on that.
All right, so that's the baseline. James, you have a great Monday, okay? Thanks for coming on. James Gagliano, thank you.
So you guys asking me about Carmelo Anthony. We have spoken a lot about that, you guys. What are you talking about? But try not to interrupt my stream, because my mods will get you. Okay, let me see. He's obviously not the subject right now. So let me see. 2 more. Pretty short, but I don't know. I live in California, so I don't know what y'all talking about in the chat. Let me share this with you. I live in Cali, so I'm always going to bring you guys a little bit of Cali news. Just because.
Good evening, I'm Bill Malugin, and this is your Fox News report. President Trump is in France for the annual G7 summit. That's fresh off announcing an initial agreement to end the war with Iran and fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That deal is expected to be signed on Friday in Switzerland. While at the summit, Trump is also expected to talk about things like trade, NATO relations, and the war in Ukraine. Iran's soccer team is facing New Zealand today in Los Angeles. The Iranians are only allowed in the U.S. the day before a match, and they have to return to Mexico after the match. The players' reaction to the Iranian national anthem will be watched closely after the women's team received backlash for refusing to sing at a tournament earlier this year. 11 skydivers and a pilot are all dead after a plane crashed in Butler, Missouri on Sunday. It happened shortly after takeoff and is now considered to be one of the deadliest crashes in skydiving history. The NTSB NTSB now says they're investigating. And a military aircraft, a B-52 Stratofortress, crashing shortly after takeoff at the Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California. A massive plume of black smoke was seen rising from the desert near that base. Nara Organics is recalling its whole milk infant formula after multiple cases of botulism. The affected products were sold at Target and at Nara.com. That was between July 2025 and June 2026. In Washington, I'm Bill Malugin. Have a great night.
That was oh, there's my video.
Choice. Sage Steele, the host of the Sage Steele Show. How much do you love seeing these foreigners come to the World Cup and rave about the things that Americans take for granted?
Even the fact that Walmart now refer to it as a museum from now on, right? It's the little things here in America that we just don't appreciate. Jesse, you know what I was thinking about over the weekend with all this happiness with everything going on, and especially at the White House yesterday? If Kamala Harris had won the White House in 2024, how would Republicans have been acting? How would people who voted for Donald Trump been acting? Would they have been protesting anti-American vibes because she was in office? No, because it's not about who's in office. It's about our country. It's so much bigger than that for people on the right, people with sanity, frankly. And so when you look at that and how they have chosen to respond, it breaks my heart. But I also do believe that at this point in time, like this is the time where we need to ignore them. Let Julia Roberts and Robert De Niro, who, by the way, had to have a teleprompter to say those things about Donald Trump. Did you notice that? Let them do them and hate because they're in the minority. And also, sports is truly the fabric of America. It is the ultimate uniter. That's why I wanted to be a sportscaster since I was a little kid, because it brings everybody together. And every single sporting event, even the sometimes more woke NBA finals, the national anthem was sung beautifully there by Mickey Guyton. How about Dan and Shay at the World Cup and how they sang it? And of course, Zach Brown, who they tried to shame out of singing the national anthem at the White House for the UFC. And he said, guys, I'm here for the troops. Come on. So let them do it how they want to do it. But we are celebrating regardless of who's in the White House. Frankly, we're celebrating because it's America.
And how good does it feel? You got the Knicks, you got the World Cup. We just had the men's hockey. You got UFC at the White House. This is such a good run that this country's on. Isn't it fun to celebrate with Europeans, the Japanese?
Yes.
It definitely feels like something's changing. Do you feel it?
I do, and I think the timing is absolutely perfect. Has it been a tough couple of months? Absolutely. Some divisiveness, some things to be concerned about on the right? Absolutely. But again, when you go back to sports, and there's no other country that does it like we do with the diversity of sports, look at how people were crying when the Knicks won for the first time since 1973, right? Black, white, green, Asian, doesn't matter. You're a Knicks fan. The miracle actually happened.
You can burn school buses together. Black, white, we can all burn school buses.
I know. Yes, let's all do it together. I'm just so happy. And at this point, we need to ignore, let them be miserable. Julia Roberts, yes, we'll keep on breathing as we celebrate this country.
And even I like soccer now. I didn't think it would be possible, but here we are. Sage, good to see you. Thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News.
Oh, damn it. She got so mad at me. Listen, you guys, I really appreciate you guys for hanging out with me. I'm always praying for America. I need to do a regular check-in where I do I need to do a check-in with you guys where I do a regular stream. You guys keep asking me about Carmelo Galaxies. You know what I'm talking about. I pray for the country. I'm praying for all of you. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And I will see you guys shortly, okay? Have a good night. Bye-bye.